Welcome to the Fullcaster Podcast, episode 37. Our guest today is Paul Bonilla, one of the absolute best in the business when we're talking about masters racing. But he's been doing it for a while, and we get a chance to dive in a little bit more what he does and what he's done. Before we do that, Dirk, we got current events to knock out. Mm-hmm. We just got done putting on a couple of big events. The last time we were recording with John Baldessare was actually a few weeks ago now. It was before we had done the Cal Speed Summer Shootout, and we just got done this last weekend with the Classico Grand Prix weekend.
Yeah, so I had some big events on both ends of the spectrum as far as karting goes.
Yeah, competition karting with the shootout, and then sport karting with the arrive and drive stuff with the Classico Grand Prix weekend. And we were just talking, we've been all in on being like the promoters, the race director
putting
guys,
stuff
the officials.
on, yeah.
So it's going to be nice to, and we have a good time doing that. Like it's obviously a lot of work. It's a heck of a lot more work than driving.
Yeah, for sure.
And we enjoy driving a lot, and we haven't done that a bunch lately. I'm actually going to get a chance to go out and test a little bit on Saturday, so I'm kind of looking forward to get back in the KA.
Mm-hmm. I think I'll actually be. Oh wait, I'll have a cart during the week. I think from Tony, so that'll be nice.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. So you might be able to go Friday, maybe, huh?
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably not.
No.
But
things are looking now.
Our next races are coming up. You actually still running the championship at Tri-C. That's going to when this comes out, actually, which I didn't mention, August 31st it'll be out. So when this is out right now, we've got Tri-C in the upcoming weekend.
Yeah.
So I think you're.
I'm third right now.
Yeah.
With 2 races to go. Yeah.
How you feeling about that?
Right now, I don't know. Right now, I'm just like, let's just get through it. I just want a trophy.
Yeah, it's probably more to do with how tired you are from the Classic Grand Prix weekend.
No, for sure. No, I feel good. I think I know the direction I want to try to go as far as, staying ahead of the grip on the track and stuff like that. So hopefully I can pull some stuff out for the last few races.
Yeah, and it's a Classico counterclockwise.
And then Technico on the finale. So
a couple of tracks
good on those tracks.
You've learned to like.
Yeah, for sure. As I've gotten better, those tracks suck less.
Which they actually are 2 of my favorite tracks that we have here. But I'm actually running the Tri-C race as well as a tune-up. I'm going to be working with Tom Nields and Jim Barry with the VMI team, which I'm just having a blast doing with those guys. But also, I'm super stoked about this. Going to get a chance to go to Indianapolis at Newcastle for the Cup Karts Grand Nationals.
Yeah.
And
in the 206.
In the 206, and my dad is going to be my tuner. And
That'd be pretty neat.
So freaking stoked on that. And he's actually going to be here during that weekend. I'm going to run 2 classes, 206 and then KA here at Tri-C. And so my dad would kind of get a chance to work the wrenches a little bit, which he hasn't done since I was 12. So I mean, specifically with me, he doesn't.
He's coming out of retirement for it. Yeah,
yeah. Might as well go back in. But no, I'm so stoked to get a chance to do that.
Neat, dude,
yeah,
for sure.
It's gonna be pretty special. So we're gonna knock the rust off here and then go back east. I think it's the first weekend of October for that race. So pretty excited about that. And that's gonna be the next thing that we got on the docket. Like you said, you got the championship finale.
Yeah.
Second weekend of October for Tri-C. I'm not doing any championship stuff myself for that, but obviously trying to get ready for Rock Vegas, which is in first week in November, I think. So actually a good amount of racing here, and we're episode 37. We've only got 3 more after this.
Yeah. I'm not going to say who we got next, but yeah, we do have some episodes lined up.
Yeah, we got some good stuff lined up, and hopefully we can get all the guys what we want. But the guy we have here today is no slouch, like I said, behind the wheel, and no stranger to big events and winning big events. And I think without further ado, let's bring him on, Paul Bonilla. Paul Bonilla, thanks for coming down here, bud. Appreciate it.
Morning. Thanks for the invite. Yeah. Glad to do it.
We always start out with asking people what they do, and being able to come out here on a Monday. Again, it's our day off, as we've mentioned before multiple times, but you work for a living. So what do you do, and how are you able to come out here on a Monday?
It was actually I don't. I won the lottery. I just live off of that.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Real estate. I'm a real estate broker. Have been since the late 90s. And yeah, pretty much. I mean, I used to do mortgage loans as well before that whole 2007-8 blow up. Mm-hmm. and crashed in the recession, they separated after that, where you can no longer do both real estate and loans. So, yeah.
It kind of makes sense that they would actually split those two things up, almost separation of church and state a little bit.
For sure.
How long said you've been doing this general thing?
So actually, I did mortgage loans I started in 93, and did it through like 96, 97, and then got my broker's license where I could do both, and then did that together. I mean, I've done a bunch of things. So I let's segue here. In the middle of that, I did a boat and jet ski rental company. So I started out with 3 or 4 Sea-Doos, and eventually got up to 20 Sea-Doos, 10
Wow.
2-seaters, 10 3-seaters, and 5 ski boats.
Wow. Where was that at?
Based out of a warehouse in Huntington Beach.
Okay.
For people going to the freshwater lakes like Havasu, Laughlin, Lake Mead, Lake Powell, that kind of thing. Not really for saltwater.
Right.
And it's interesting because working on 2-strokes and karting and such, when you realize what the price tag is to rebuild, and these are Rotax motors in these Bombardier Sea-Doos, you realize the price tag to rebuild it. And I'm like, okay, well, it's just a twin, from 720 cc's up to 951 cc's. And it's got the power valve on it and everything. It's like, oh, okay. So I started playing around with it. And after about a year or two, I was rebuilding my own motors.
Oh, neat.
Probably saving quite a bit right there.
For sure. Yeah, I would pick the skis that had the least amount of physical exterior damage and go, okay, well, that one's clean. Let's rebuild the motor.
Right,
the one
right.
started looking junky. You're like, well, let's just get rid of it. So
Yeah,
use
for
it.
sure.
Yeah.
What made you get into? Are you big on the water, or you do a lot of water sports?
Yeah. I know we were talking offline here before we started about some of your other guests, and it's interesting how many of us have similar overlays. My longtime mechanic and friend, Steve Zarilla, we've mountain biked for years. I remember John Crow would always mention mountain biking as a way to, it's fun, right? I mean, we do that for the most part, but as a way to stay fit, it's I've never really been a gym rat. For me, going and doing a workout where you're like just sitting there going, oh, this is terrible, versus, look at the workout we get karting or,
Right.
I surf, skateboard, you name it. That's all the kind of workout you get while having fun. You don't notice it until the
Right.
next day. You're like, oh, I'm hurting.
Yeah.
You're doing an activity. You're not just going out there trying to pump iron.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I can do a little bit of the weightlifting and stuff, but the
You were just counting down the minutes.
and the
the hour
cardio
or so.
stuff just kills me.
Yeah.
I hate it. I don't like it at all. But yeah, like you said, I'd much rather go out and play flag football or something like that. I say that. It hurts so much
Yeah.
these days. I can't do it
Paul's stuff, it hurts the day after. Yours, it hurts like on the way
while
home.
I'm doing it. Yeah.
No, it hurts while I'm doing it too. We'll talk a little bit more about current events and Pat's Acres. That was,
Oh, yeah.
that was
Oh, right.
painful.
That's right. Well, going back to that, what made you do that business? I mean, again, you have that business going on while you're doing real estate. Maybe I have the wrong idea, but it seems to me that you can actually fit stuff like that in with real estate. Like there's times where you need to really get after it, and other times where you can kind of have two things going on. Is that kind of how it is?
Yeah, I mean, was always one of those things where I was racing and pretty much a racing bum and looking for something that could make some money and then go race for a while, and then come back and make some money and then go race for a while.
Gotcha.
And the jet ski thing just fell into it. I actually had a friend that was doing it, and he was doing it out of Orange County. So we kind of came up with a gentleman's agreement that I would do it out of like Long Beach and North LA County. And like everything else, that friendship went sour, and he kind of drove it in the ground. He didn't have a mechanical background. He was just all about, oh, cool, people pull up and pay me $800 to rent 2 jet skis for the weekend. And things started breaking down and having complaints. And then people started calling me and going, hey, you're not affiliated with that guy. I'm like, no. So the same way you go about prepping a cart for the weekend, making sure nothing's going to fall off, and, being, attentive to something that might have a problem and replacing things as needed. So I kind of ran that business the same way you would run, a successful, weekend racing. And it definitely paid off. But the unfortunate part is all these businesses, you get to a point where it starts to cut into your racing. You're like, I was gone from real estate for like 8-9 years. We'll talk a little bit about, what I did in that time frame. But yeah, now I'm back. I'm fairly successful, doing well. But it's like, it's all on the weekends.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
it's unfortunate.
People want to go see houses when they're not working.
Exactly.
Weird.
Exactly.
That's when the races are going on too.
So I just have a knack for like slitting my own throat on being able to do what I want to do when I want to do it. So look at right now I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
I can go out and test during the week. Andy's had some clients come out, like we did, track rentals and that kind of stuff at private events. That's great. It's just, I'm giving up probably, 3 out of 4 weekends for easily per month for work, and then try to squeeze out a race and show up here.
Right. And at the end of the day, you got to pick and choose. What races do you want to do? And you still got to pay. What's that thing we have to do as adults? Bills. That's got to be a bit of a challenge too.
Yeah, a little bit of finagling, client looking at a house going, hey, we think we want to see this weekend. I'm like, well, there's a much better one, but it's coming out next weekend.
You move that schedule around a little bit.
Yeah.
You look at the bottom line like, I don't really need to sell this house right now.
Yeah, right.
So you've been doing the real estate thing, all different kinds of stuff. You said since 93. That's a while. Is that you pretty much get into this thing right out of school, or did you go to school after the high school stuff?
Yeah, so went to Long Beach State University, graduated there with a business finance degree and a minor in real estate investments. So that kind of was that.
Kind of thinking about it already?
For sure. My parents have a few rental properties. I helped them out with that over the years. I mean, as a kid, we'd go help them paint and, do yard work and prep it for the next, person knows the next tenant. So graduated and then went right into doing mortgage loans, and then actually started racing shortly thereafter.
Oh, so you didn't race as a kid?
No.
Oh.
I didn't start until I was 23.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
This is a good segue. So you end up, you do a bunch of other not racing things as a kid, and it's not until after school and you're starting to do the real estate stuff that you start doing racing.
Yep. Well, and it's interesting because, again, like we were just talking offline, it's like Howie, you guys had him on recently, and I raced BMX for 7 years.
Oh, okay.
Right. And grew up skateboarding, surfing. It's crazy that the coincidence of a lot of the same, types of sports and things that we do here in SoCal. So race from 12, it was actually 11X to 17X. So I guess 6 years. A lot of Orange YMCA, the Irvine BMX track, Cole Canyon. It's funny.
How'd you get into the BMX there?
Well, let's see. Kids around the neighborhood just all riding bikes. And then, so I grew up in Cypress. And if you ever been in the area, it's like Catella and Knott. It's significant because it's right there where Yamaha Corporation is, literally quarter mile from my house. And adjacent that was a huge dirt lot that was broken into 2 levels, and it was maybe a 6 foot height, difference from one to the other. And it was perfect for us just going out there with shovels and making a BMX track where, start straight, a jump, or, make it to a tabletop, back down, around. And we had that thing all to ourselves for 6 to 8 years.
Oh, wow.
And no one gave us any grief. So it was, and coincidentally, I mean, I don't know if you ever follow BMX back in the day, but Billy Griggs and I know Howie mentioned Haro, all these guys were they were gods, we idolized them. And one of them lived 2 miles away, would show up to our local little, homemade BMX track. We're like, whoa, dude, you're sponsored, and you're won nationals, you travel, we've seen you on TV. Yeah. So it's pretty cool.
Man, and so you're doing that through your teenage years. Did you said you did it right there. Are you going for championships and stuff like that? Are your parents taking you? Are they all part of it too?
So, yeah. It's crazy because BMX has, they still do Wednesday night races, Friday night races. So Orange YMCA was Wednesday night, Friday night, Saturday morning, Cole Canyon. Then you could go Saturday afternoon, Norco. Sunday morning, you could do Irvine. I mean, just like this, if you want to get as addicted as you want to get, as much as you want to do, it's there for you.
Wow. Okay.
And Mom was the bus driver.
Yeah.
And sometimes hall friends as well. So I was reasonably good, right? I liked more freestyle. I loved jumps and tabletops and doing 360s and all that. My racing, was decent, but it's interesting because it's all related. I would try to work out and try to build my legs, but I've always been a skinny kid. So, I mean, the horsepower, the motors, it's right
you.
here.
Yeah.
It's you. And right. So you have these guys that just natural trunk legs, and, you get that snap off the starting gate and you can just see the 1, 2, 3 pedals. And this guy's like, a bike length
Already
or more.
got a jump, yeah.
Yeah. And then I started playing around with, I'd saved a bunch of money. I got my first Redline flight cranks. And I forget the dimension. I think it was 160s, 170s, 180s. So you play around with like a longer stroke. Think about how this applies to like a motor. And then gearing, going, okay, well, maybe I could spin it faster. And then the gear combination, because of my strength isn't what it, it's like
That's pretty cool.
handicapping a weak motor, right?
Right.
Or
Yeah.
if you have a lot of power and you're like, I can drop a couple teeth on this motor. It's
Yeah.
the same kind of thing.
Oh, neat.
That's
Yeah.
cool. And what was the aspirations? Were you like, because I know BMX was big back then, and it's still decent now, but it was like the thing. Sounds like for racing and whatnot here in SoCal. Were you like, how far can you go with that? And were you thinking about doing that for a long time?
I was, and I think I did the Vegas Nationals. One of those where, it's just hundreds and hundreds of kids.
We actually had Mark Connell on the show, and he talked about doing, I think it was the Vegas Nationals
That's
when
right,
he moved. Yeah.
And I'm trying to think of a year, right? So let's see, probably like 80.
Yeah.
And yeah, I got clobbered. I didn't even make it past the, LCQ stuff, but, it was an experience. Aspirations, it was really just, for a while, you have these big dreams. I want to get sponsored. I want to travel, this, that, and the other. Part of what happens is, start getting at 15, 16. Oh, got my permit. Cool.
Other stuff starts to come up in life.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I got a car. I'm going to fix it up. Oh, girls.
Right.
That's enough to torpedo almost any kind of sport or activity. Yeah. So it was that transition to like, okay, start messing around with cars and friends and going out.
Were you watching any kind of racing as a kid or motorsports, stuff like that?
Good question. Very little. And this is, again, it's all part of the equation. So my dad was a machinist, more specifically a tool and die maker. And he focused a lot on doing molds for wheels for car companies like American Eagle. He worked for Boyd Coddington. He worked for Carroll Shelby.
Wow.
He worked for a lot of different companies, and he was even doing like stuff for like MP, if like Volkswagen stuff.
Yeah.
So he had the big 5-spoke Porsche alloys that go on the big 5 pattern for like Volkswagen. So he was always into cars. He got into Porsches and had like 80s air cooled, Carreras, convertibles. Got my mom a Beamer. Like a 6 Series, a 7 Series, a 635 CSI. So I started coming up with these European cars, and, he could work on stuff, and he was a machinist. So it started off with me, like on my BMX bike, hey, Dad, can you like make this little piece or that piece? And then eventually cars, and then, started messing around hot rodding cars a little bit. But I didn't really get the racing thing. I didn't like, okay, yeah, it's on TV or whatever.
You guys were just gearheads and like that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just tweaking on things and yeah, gearheads are perfect. And then I forget when it was. Probably, so let's see, 86, 87. Watching Prost and Senna in Formula One. Back up a little bit further. So, my parents are both from Colombia, South America. Funny but true here. So my mom's maiden name is Montoya. Okay, so I'm Paul. Could be Juan Pablo. Right. But it's actually Pablo Andres Bonilla. So if my mom, if it would have been, her maiden name would have been our last name, I would have been a Pablo Montoya, which is interesting, I guess, given that he went to Formula One and, had some success.
Right.
It's all in the name, really.
Right. That's it. That's
You would have
it.
been destined.
There's 2 tenths in the name.
Instead, Bonilla.
So,
He's
yeah.
like, hold on. Let's back it up a second.
No, so so Dad was, tool and die, gearhead, obviously, loved the Latin American, South American athletes and, soccer, football, as you're supposed to
Yes,
say.
right.
Right.
And then when you start getting these, like Piquet, Fittipaldi, obviously a lot of Brazilians. Colombia's a really small country. So it was more natural that you have, then again, Argentina's small, and you had Fangio, in the 50s with, 4 world championships. And that was the gold standard until Prost. For a long, long time. So there's obviously a lot of pride among South Americans of like, hey, this guy came from our little part of the world.
Right.
Yeah, it's a small pool.
It is. It really is. And there's, certainly not a lot of money. There are in certain little circles, obviously, but, compared to Europe, Italy and, just over there, it's like 90% of all the drivers and all the talent is, from that continent.
Mm-hmm.
What I always find interesting is people who grew up around here in SoCal, and you're like, no, I didn't really watch racing, didn't really get involved. And there was an F1 race at Long Beach there for several years. There's
I was gonna
Grand
say,
Prix of Long Beach.
You never went to that when you were younger? Or?
So my dad went to one of the Formula One races at Long Beach, and I guess
Is it like late 70s, right? 79?
Yeah, I think so.
Something like that?
I must have still been, so I was probably 10 or 11 years old and probably didn't show interest or whatever. You never know. Who knows? Maybe I would have just cried because it was too loud.
Yeah.
My ears hurt.
I know that's what I was crying about when I was a kid.
So, but then I think by the 80s, we did go to Long Beach Grand Prix.
Okay.
And, check it out a little bit. And that was interesting. But, yeah, I'm trying to remember when the bug hit. I guess really just watching Formula One and becoming a race fan. That whole like 87, 88, 89. Once the gloves were off and it was Prost versus Senna on the same team, McLaren, Honda. Those guys were just purposely taking each other out.
Yeah.
With like a, screw you.
Yeah.
That's what you get. Walk away. It's like, oh my God. That was serious.
So is it when he, was it Ferrari? Ferrari and, I'm brain farting. But
Benetton.
They're going down into, same guy as Prost and Senna, and they go down into the first corner of Suzuka at the start.
Yep.
And Senna just goes, we're going straight.
Yeah.
I'm wrecking you. Just like you effed me the other thing. Here we go. And I like on display for everybody to see. And like you said, it happens and he just walks away. No.
Right.
I won the championship. We're both wrecked out, but I won the championship.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I can't believe that stuff.
No, it is. It is. And interesting because, my first Formula One race was, two first Formula One races were 1990-91 at Phoenix.
Oh,
and again,
right.
This is the coincidence of, the fact you just had Howie on. I didn't realize he was there in an F3 car, and we were there for that race. And we actually got really lucky because we snuck into the parking structure, which is adjacent the pit lane. And we went up to the fourth floor. And we could look down at everyone in the pits, and you could see all the drivers. And then we looked back, and right next to us was Bob Varsha and David Hobbs.
Cool.
For back then, was it
Speed Vision, maybe?
Yeah, Speed Vision, probably. Yeah,
something like that.
And they were like in their coats and collared shirt and shorts because they would never show them below the waist.
Right. Yeah.
But it's frickin' Phoenix.
Yeah.
Yeah. So got to see Senna. A lazy led for like 32 laps, and then pretty sure, right? Or I don't know if it's the other way around. I can't remember. Or maybe it was Senna. I forget.
As Derek likes to say, we're going to fact check this one for sure.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm pretty curious.
Yeah. I think maybe it was a lazy because it shocked everybody, and he was like, well, we were like, oh, this guy just arrived.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's just crazy to be there, and it's funny because walking in the track. First Formula One race, right? And you see these guys selling earplugs. Get your earplugs, your earplugs. You're like, whatever, we can handle it, right? Walk up first session, that screaming Formula One sound, and about face walking out to go find the guys.
Give me those earplugs.
Because your ears will bleed. It was gnarly.
Yeah, I actually I've talked about that before here at the NASCAR race. I've been both on the skyboxes and then on the pit lane terrace. And on the pit lane terrace, when they start for the race, like just even the pace lap, the first lap, the formation lap before they actually get the green, I'm already having a hard time. Like my right ear will just start singing, and I have to have earplugs in. And even with earplugs, I'm still kind of struggling. It's so bloody loud, and they're not as loud as the F1s. So you're like, yeah, we got this F1 thing, no big deal. Just kidding.
Yeah.
Like. I don't even remember like the champ cars or Indy cars that used to come through Portland. I don't remember them being as loud.
They were pretty loud, but yeah, they were never deafening.
No, I think the NASCARs are louder.
And
than
actually,
that.
there'd be sports cars that'd be way louder than
Yeah,
yeah,
that's true.
The IRL or kart stuff.
I remember like I think I've said before. You have back when the TDIs, the diesels were just starting. They were doing an American Le Mans race at Portland, and you've got Porsche goes by and it's got that kind of, and you got the whoa of the
Audi
Vets or whatever,
Right.
and then
Oh,
here comes the diesel.
The diesels were quiet as shit. Yeah,
Like there's nothing there because it's so bloody quiet compared to the other ones. You think
Right.
LMP1 is so quiet.
yeah.
Well, the turbochargers quieted down a lot.
Right.
So let's see. So you're talking Portland. Was this kart?
Yeah, so it was kart, an IndyCar, and Champ Car. Eventually, they had the GI Joe's 200. So it was always there during
I
Father's
can't
Day.
remember if they were turboed all that period or not. Probably.
Kart was. It was. You know what? Champ Car was probably turbo too. I think they were
Champ
always
Car
turbo.
was, yeah.
It was the NAs were the naturally aspirated was the IRL guys.
I think Champ Car was the first time they like really used push to pass as well.
Yeah, I think you're right. But yeah, they did because they had. I remember the blow off valve or the pop off valves and stuff like that too.
Going back to the Phoenix stuff, where you obviously made the trek out to Phoenix to go watch this race. Were you like now invested in racing? Like as far as you were for sure a fan and into it.
Yeah, because you said it was like early. This is like 91ish, right? So we're talking about you started racing 93. So this is late teens, early 20s.
Yep, exactly. So I started when I was 23 and in 90. Yeah, no, it actually wasn't. Yeah, it was 91. I was 23. And we had just got back from a family trip to Europe. We were there for like 4 or 5 weeks. And part of that trip was to circle back and hit Magny-Cours.
Oh, cool.
And then the following weekend, Silverstone.
Oh,
Back to back. So you
wow.
get to go in the tunnel, whatever,
Yeah.
straight over to, we stayed in Shakespeare Land, which is Stratford upon Avon, which is just outside of Silverstone, like 15, 20 miles. It's part of that Grand Prix Tours group that used to do all that.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, so Magny-Cours was incredible because we were, and I forget the turn numbers, but came down to this hairpin. We were, whatever that was, turn 3, 4. Started the race, and Schumacher got a little hot and heavy on Senna. I don't know if he tried to pass him or just late braked and took him out. And they both, well, let's see. I forget who, one continued on. I think Senna just got out of his car right there. And we're sitting right there, so it was like total, heart sinking. But then we're like, well, look, we could see him walking,
Yeah.
But, yeah, Mansell, Prost, that whole group. I'm pretty sure Mansell won that day. And then the following weekend, the trek to England, to Silverstone, and it rained. And we got to see Mansell win in the rain, which was pretty incredible. I forget where Senna ended up. But the tradition back then was for all the fans to storm the track. And literally, like, even on the cool-down lap, there was already thousands of fans hopping the
Right.
fence.
Yeah.
And we hopped it as well. And, this is actually dangerous. People
Yeah.
being on track.
Yeah.
But
It's
it was
cool
fun.
down lap. There's still freaking cars going around the joint.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we got to
Wow.
see that. That was, so to answer your question, Derek, came back literally within a month. I was at Jim Hall out at,
When you came back
Oxnard.
from Phoenix.
when I came back. So,
From Europe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So got to do, so let's see, Phoenix would have been probably earlier in the year. I forget. I'm pretty sure it was an early race.
So the Phoenix race and the Europe stuff all happened in the same year.
Yeah.
So you went from not watching it, not being a race fan or being involved in racing other than BMX for all of your teenage years for the most part, and then things really start to ramp up, and you start becoming a fan by watching it on TV.
Totally.
And then do this trip, and you just go from, yeah, it's okay, to more and more vested interest, and now you're all in.
Right. Yeah. It's basically like, you know what? Like literally almost tired of watching it unless I get out there and see what this is all about.
Yeah, because this BMX thing ain't gonna work. We're gonna be a race car driver
No,
instead.
I'd already parked it for a few years. The bike was there, but yeah, hadn't raced. Like I said, once you got into cars, it just kind of got
Yeah.
mothballed. But yeah, did the Jim Hall thing. That was fun. In fact, I found a picture I have it on my phone of in those black Stewart zip-up jackets
Yeah.
Nice.
with jeans.
Got to be fireproof.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. came back and then looked at, I forget what it was back then. I think it was probably the Penny Saver was the magazine. It's before the Recycler and before all that. And found a kart on there, an Emic, I forget what year. It was obviously used with a Comet K71. And the guy, everything, toolbox, gears, specialty tools, Allens.
This guy was getting out.
Yeah, he was getting out. Starter, because it's like, you're going to sell a kart without a starter? Well, what's wrong with you?
Right.
Yeah, pretty much everything. And borrowed my dad's truck and started going out at Adams.
So you go to Jim Hall, you said Oxnard, right? For the driving school. Mm-hmm. How did that driving school go, and did you pick it up right away? I mean, obviously you were interested in it. It was exciting and fun, so you got yourself a kart. But how'd the school go?
Good question, yeah. So the school, I remember very little of it, but yeah, I mean, I don't think I threw it off track, which is obviously probably common, especially out there. I don't know if you were ever there, but it was like a beachy, sandy thing. People put a wheel off. You would just literally, it's like someone went to the beach and scooped up a whole sandbag and just went and put it here on turn one. You're like, what? I mean, talk about slippery.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like worse than moisture.
How'd you hear about it? I mean, again, you're doing the racing stuff. You're like, you immediately, like, I got to find out how to do this myself. And how'd you find out about Jim Hall?
That's a good question. I'm guessing it was probably like Racer Magazine or, regular car racing magazine.
I was going to say
back
something
page.
like that. Yeah.
There was always a back page. And
just a small advertisement.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A little cutout thing that said, interested in karting, want to get started or whatever.
And did you already know what karting was at that point?
You know what? Not really, other than whenever they would show clips of like Senna doing the South American Championship and then going to Europe, in those black leather looking overalls with a yellow helmet. And just, those crazy sick passes he would put on people, and then going, whoa, these things are cool. You start thinking about like a BMX bike, anything with components and, I remember being a kid looking at like, oh, this is anodized, it's aluminum and it has this really cool finish to it that somehow it makes it lighter. And, it's
magic.
expensive. Yeah.
Yeah.
And basically if we would have known about magnesium back then, I would have just like died. And it's like, no, forget that. Anodized aluminum is
right.
That's a trick.
I think there's something to be said. So, you said as a kid you did some BMX stuff, and then to go to Jim Hall, you didn't put a wheel off, you didn't go off track. Like, that's a good start to your first day in a go-kart. I think there's something to be said about kids at a young age who do the extreme sports stuff like yourself. They can get in a go-kart and feel pretty comfortable right out of the gate, and it's almost the kids that are just reckless,
Right.
Like they lack that fear of getting hurt or whatever. Those kids don't mind getting in a go-kart right away.
You're totally right there. If you were to talk to my parents, they were like, as a kid, you were a freaking terror. Like,
right.
we didn't know what to do with you, So there is that common theme of either whatever, an ADD and ADHD. Mm-hmm. It was undiagnosed back then. You didn't know. It's just like, hey, this kid needs to like go tire him out.
Yeah.
So I think that played well for that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And it's a natural, like, fear. It helps you manage and deal with fear, when you're like that,
yeah.
right? Because you're so revved up, like, oh, no, it doesn't matter. Let's go for it.
Yeah.
Full send all the time. So
Yeah.
you end up doing the Jim Hall deal. It goes out pretty well. You end up buying a cart right away, and then you say you go to Adams. When you go to Adams, and we're talking 93, right? Karting is booming. Karting is a big deal, and you're just now getting into it as someone in your early 20s. And, having the other guests on like Matt Johnson, we know that kids have been, at that point, we've got kids.
They'd already been rolling through.
And we're not quite, we're just thinking about doing cadets and stuff like that as far as proper cadet-sized stuff. So things are really starting to expand as far as it's not just adults and mid-teens doing it.
But the evolution of the sport at that time, yeah.
When you go to Adams for that first time and you go out to your practice day or what have you, what was that whole thing like? And was it a packed house when you were there for practice days? And did you immediately start racing?
So, yeah, no, definitely it was packed. It was, and I went every weekend, and I kind of had a feeling like, okay, I'm going to race, but I don't want to arrive and suck. Mm-hmm. So I think it was a whole year of practicing probably, 30, 40 plus times. And then showing up to race already, fairly adjusted.
Would you go to the races and watch?
Yeah, I did go to a couple. I don't know if it was SoCal or Tri-C. It wasn't a championship. It wasn't an IKF Region 7 yet. But yeah, wanted to go check it out, talk to people, that kind of thing. Try to find out, okay, so I just bought a kart, like, what's this motor I have? Oh, it's a Comet K71. Well, you have to race piston port. Oh, okay. And then, you see there's a Yamaha class. There's a super stock, which is, more like a reed valve. So yeah, no, in this K71 or this Comet piston port thing, I think it was, they were doing, I know what I did. I did novice. So they had a novice class, which instead of the full pipe, it was, a 10 or 12 inch piece of flex with a kind of an elongated can. And it was still plenty of power, and it was fun. And there was a few other guys that had a similar combination. So that's what we ended up doing. And yeah, I think probably by the end of maybe the second year, finally won some small club race with, 7 guys kind of thing, feeling like, on top of the world. Like, I got this.
When you started doing the karting deal, like you said, you get in the novice thing, did you start learning more about, hey, there's the club races, there's IKF, there's all these other kinds of stuff. Did you, kind of going back to the younger you doing the BMX stuff, in your early 20s here, are you starting going, well, I could do something with this? Was it ever big picture thinking, or is it like just, I'm just going to do karting because it's fun?
So, yeah, no, great question, because, I thought about, okay, I'm going to kart, learn to drive, learn to race, try to get good, but at the same time, try to keep focusing on business. And, you're young, you're thinking, hey, someday maybe I'll be, a millionaire. And I don't
doing the broker stuff, right? Or the loans, right?
Right, doing loans, and then, eventually, obviously, real estate. But, yeah, I was already aware of, you see these guys, we all see the guys that, whether attorneys, doctors, big money, don't really know how to drive, go out and buy, a $500,000, supercar, Ferrari, whatever. And then, you hear a month later, they wrapped it around a tree, got killed on PCH in Newport Beach or whatever, ball of fire. So I was already aware that, you can have plenty of money, but if you don't know how to drive, if you don't know how to hold down your own, you're
not going to be any good.
Yeah, well, you're going to be an idiot. You're going to kill yourself, whatever. Yeah. So I was like, okay, maybe I'll just like brace for a few years and, keep working on business. And that way, once I arrive, I'll be able to, be able to handle it and, go from there.
So where did you, when you started doing the racing deal, do you remember who you were racing with at the time? Those first early days?
Yeah, there's, God, what was his name? I mean, there were some club racers that I don't think ever did big championship stuff.
And you just do 1 year novice?
Yeah, 1 year novice, and then moved into, I think probably, piston port light, which is, the same motor, but you can put a pipe on it. I think back then light was like 310, and then heavy was like 330.
Yeah.
Which is just amazing.
Yeah. Right.
Well, the karts themselves were a lot lighter, right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, listening to some of your other, podcasts, I have an old 90s Track Magic.
Oh, really?
Sitting in the garage. And
That's
since
cool.
they're, since they just mentioned that people are refurbishing them, like maybe I'll get it painted and, brakes don't work, the seals are all dust or whatever. And I have a couple Yamahas and, whatever. My thought is maybe I'll do I still have a Formula Y pipe and the driver. So maybe get it set up for a direct drive on that old.
That'd be cool.
That'd be really neat.
Yeah.
Yeah, we one of our guests, Diego Morales.
I was just gonna say
he actually he's Colombian and he's from or spent a lot of time in Brazil, and he raced in Brazil a bit, and he got it's not replica per se, but I think it's a DAP car, and then I can't remember what the engine he got on there.
Late 70s, early 80s.
I think it's either late. I think it's 80s or. I think it's 80s.
I think it's 80s as well, yeah.
But it was like he's trying to get close to like what Senna drove at the time because he remembered watching Senna in Brazil.
Right.
But he has actually it's here and it's he's got some the little elf ear looking
side Nerf bars.
Nerf bars, yeah, brain dead. The whole thing. So it's quote legal to go run, but it's total vintage status.
Yeah.
And he's got I think it's he's got the Vinco Reds on. He's got like or Bridgestones actually. I think it's a little bit more grip than what you would have back then, but still just to kind of tool around and have some fun. I'm trying to get him to go out to Adams for the vintage deal. You thought about doing some vintage racing, especially with something like that?
Yeah, you know what? I mean, and it's quasi vintage because I mean the stuff people have out there are just 70s bugs and like just really really original, like those hard Carlisle tires or whatever.
Yeah.
You look at that stuff, and I mean the way these guys have to lean. It's just,
into the corner. Yeah,
it's actually kind of scary looking.
Yeah.
When we're talking 90s. There's
like
a
the
little more
one
proper.
race a year that doesn't have an ambulance is this one.
We don't have to worry about that, right? When you're racing, you're getting going. How's that progression go from he's doing the piston port stuff, and we're talking early to mid 90s here, and there's big racing going on there. So how fast did you go up the ladder, and what were you trying to do? So
let's see, probably first Region 7 race was like late 95, maybe even 96, at Adams. And I had, when you're newer, you don't know the combinations that you need, who's a good engine builder. And, we were just talking the other day about like, gosh, we didn't do any caster camber until like I came back. And we'll talk a little bit about this in a bit about leaving. Everyone leaves karting for a while. Right? I left for 5 years. Come back and you're like, whoa, snipers and like caster and camber. I mean, they had the big discs that you put on the front spindles and, you would measure. But I mean, and you could get a decent idea of like toe out and, and all that. But it certainly wasn't,
like it is now.
Laser, accurate. Yeah. But anyways, yeah, so 95, 96, got a Yamaha, and it was just average. Didn't have, I was racing, in classes with, 30, 40 guys, and it's one of those, in the teens, and then, maybe finish filing the top 10. That was, a huge success. But yeah, I raced against like Joey Hand. He was like factory Emick. He would show up at Adams, and one of the only karts, first time I saw a kart had front brakes, and we're like, what the hell? And they're like, yeah, it's legal. I'm like, but what? And they're like, yeah, you don't really need it. It's like, but certain situations like the little Monza, Joey would just throw it in there last second, just park it, And I was like, whoa, okay, I guess front brakes can help you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously Matt Johnson was around. I remember, Billy would come and go because he was doing a lot of truck drive and traveling.
Cleveland?
But, yeah, Cleveland. I remember seeing some, I don't know if I raced against Billy, probably. I'd have to go back and look. Maybe some Superbox stuff by like 97, 98. It's funny, like we were talking about this earlier, is, karting goes through all these different iterations where you're like, faster, more power. And then it's like, well, you know what, let's get everybody together and just start taking away power, Superbox. And then like, Sportsman, that can, it's like you can run faster than those things.
Yeah.
But it's that, trying to compare, I don't know if you ever saw IndyCar here at the big track.
Yeah.
That analogy of like IndyCar at this track, just the, NASCAR even too. It's just, not a
lot of separation.
A lot of separation. It's like a bad parade,
Yeah, right.
Versus, NASCAR, at any other track where they're just on, it's all pack racing.
Right.
Same thing karting. So I get it. After a few years, people are like, well, we need to make this more interesting, mixed in with obviously some business, like, hey, this importer is going to bring this motor, and that. But yeah, so I think we did some KT and then did some Superbox and then Formula Y. That was cool.
I heard Formula Y was pretty cool. Yeah,
it was. There's nothing like the first time you run, trip over a wheel, and fall flat on your face outside the car.
Oh man!
Yeah,
the car keeps going.
Oh
yeah.
Man!
Now it started.
Yeah, it's. But I'd like to see a return to some of that. Internationally, you have. It's big, but here it's just been all clutch stuff.
Right, right. Not since the I want to say the Stars days have we really had the direct drive stuff.
Yeah, and JICA and all that.
Yeah,
Formula A. Yeah, those things were beasts. I heard. I never drove one.
Oh yeah,
19,000 RPM.
Jeez.
I think you even hit over 20. I think, didn't they?
Yeah,
That's
they
a
did.
lot on a
21,000
Jesus
RPM at
Christ.
like a Newcastle. Like really, if you had a lot of
About a
space.
straight.
But they were disposable, right? You had to have like 3 or 4 of those things sitting around.
I remember. Oh yeah, I think it was the Stars race at maybe in Phoenix or Tucson or something like that. And like there's a like sand or something like that got in. They were like they were going
man.
left and right from sucking up.
That sucks.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like the first successful race I had was Adams. It was 97. It was an IKF Region 7 race. And up until then, like I said, finished maybe, mid-pack or whatever. And I had switched to Fleming racing engines. And Doug, and I can't remember if I actually sent my motor to him or if he was just like, saw me and was like frustrated seeing me not do well.
Right.
And he handed me a motor. He goes, "Here, just go run this." And I remember like qualified top 5 and just started picking people off. And back in those days, it was Kevin Christensen. His nickname was Camel.
Why was his nickname Camel?
That's a good question.
Well, you kind of have a hunchback, so we just went with it. That's weird growth.
No, wasn't that. But
I'll have to ask some other guys, see if they know that.
yeah,
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, I'll have to ask Matt Johnson. Yeah. Matt will be the first source for that. But yeah, and Kevin would win everything, and he was leading. And I started hunting him down, and it was one of those where like I got up to his rear bumper, and I didn't really know what to do, and
Right.
I ended up kind of like just holding station there. I was just so happy to be in second, and then I finished the race, and Fleming comes up to me. He's like, "Good job." He's all, "But you can pass him, right?" So it was already an attaboy, but you could have won. It's like, oh crap, But yeah, so no, that was cool. And then started going off doing, like Santa Maria, Willow.
So getting that engine though, that kind of spearheads like, oh wait, I'm maybe a little bit better than I thought I was, or whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely gives you that confidence. It takes it to a whole nother level. And once you see there's a chance, and then it's it's a whole new world. You're like, okay, I think I can do this.
It doesn't, so you get that little extra motivation of whatnot. Like instead of you were kind of hanging out maybe in those mid-teens to a top 10, and now you're like, oh geez, all right. And so that got you to kind of, all right, I got something here. I want to do more than just run here. Or were you already doing the IKF series?
I think I had done a couple races, and it's hard to remember where exactly in the timeline they were doing like the Laughlin race. I forget what year it was. It might have been right around there too. But it was a great era because, there was the Momo Grand Prix around Irvine Spectrum in the parking lot there.
Oh, cool.
There was the Test and Thunder. We did a bunch of those. So this is all like 97, 98.
A lot of street races back then.
A lot of street races. I never got a chance to do the Huntington Beach one by the pier in those parking lots, which I'm down there all the time surfing. Look at those lots going, how do they fit a go-kart race in here?
Yeah.
There's no way. But they did. Then Angel Stadium under the Big A.
I remember hearing about that.
There's pictures, and it did that. Remember had a short battle there with Joey Han before he sailed off into the distance.
How did he sail off?
It was just quick, man. I mean, there's a reason why he ended up in cars shortly thereafter.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say like you sent him or something. Sorry.
Oh, no.
No, he walked away.
Yeah, walked away.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, no.
Paul's like, I got to help this guy in his car career. I'm going to go lift.
Yeah.
Just let him go.
There was the Honda Center that I'm pretty sure it was Hollis Brown put that on.
There's a lot of stuff going on in Orange County.
Oh, it was big.
Man, that's awesome.
It was really cool. And it was a crazy track because it was literally, so it was you did a left, then another left, so a 90 degree, then like a hairpin left, and then a right dog leg back to the next left. So basically what I just described was an L.
Yeah.
The track was an L.
Yeah.
I mean, it must have literally been 17-second lap time.
What track was that at?
That was the Honda Center.
Oh, okay.
At Catella in the 57.
Man.
Ironically, like literally 2 blocks away from where Andy's shop was until recently.
An L shape, you would expect like a street race to be, not a parking lot. Or was that on the street?
It was in the parking lot. Yep, it was just smack dab center of the parking lot.
That was actually a thing in the 90s because actually when I was racing in 94, they also had we were racing at Pat's Acres, and Portland Karting Association was putting them on, but there was actually a race at the Mall 205, and it's a mall, And right in the corner of their parking lot area, they ended up putting on a street race right there. There's also a street race in Canby, I want to say, that same year that they did the Canby, which is just, right adjacent to Pat Saker's basically by a couple of minutes. And they had that street race. There was the Multi 05 street race, and they're all in it. We're just not karting there isn't like karting down here in SoCal, but street races were still a big thing in the 90s. And I don't know why that spurred on. I know why we don't do as many these days, right, for liabilities and just cost
of it. Yeah. Everything.
But it's crazy to hear all of those quote special races or street races or whatnot that happened around here. I mean, it's a long list. It's a really long list. Yeah. And they all kind of went and once it got to the 2000s or thereabouts.
Yeah, and I know I'm probably forgetting some, but it was a great time for sure. And it's funny because again, I know Howie mentioned that he either worked with or a company that owns Momo, and it was the Who know? I mean, now that I think about it, we got to ask him later. Maybe he had some involvement or why they ended up doing that
Momo Grand Prix.
Yeah.
So you're starting to do. At this point, you're already rolling into IKF stuff. Are you showing up to these races, like, I got a shot to win, or are you still figuring yourself out as a driver?
Totally still figuring myself out. And yeah, I mean, as a driver, but then realizing, the setup, like, oh, wow, this is, and keep in mind, Yamahas were, I mean, it was a wide range between a average or slower motor and, a championship fast, winning motor. People were claiming motors paying $5,000, like in the 90s. Like, I want that motor. It's like, whoa.
Yeah. And Jesus Fast, because when we had him on, he said it was just because because casting, the massive difference between each one. And you could start putting stuff together, and that's where the motor builders were proper, like, get me several, and I'll take the best pieces, and that's how you'd have these screamers.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, and they made that motor probably, I don't know what, like 30 years or whatever. And so imagine the manufacturing process and the machining and the tooling, would change. So it's like, it's not going to be perfectly consistent.
They're pumping them out. Yeah.
Yeah. They're pumping them out. And then, I don't know if this is true, and it's hard to remember this stuff from way back when, but I think there was even talk of like people that were getting their own cylinders, like someone offshore was casting and, optimizing and playing around with making their own stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jesus.
To talk about competitive.
Yeah. Because we got to win this go-kart race, man.
Were you, how did you feel on the street courses, street races and stuff like that? You feel pretty confident?
Yeah. I liked them. I mean, Lancaster Grand Prix was fun. Did you ever race it? Either of you two?
Yeah, actually, I did it twice. I did the 206 version, the Invitational, and then I won the last one for 100cc at 2019.
Okay. So, I mean, if I'm counting the corners correctly, the long front straightaway, and then, turn 1 left, turn 2 left, turn 3 left, and then that right-hander. That little part is like an L, like I was describing.
Right.
And it was really narrow on that turn 4 right-hander.
Yeah.
And you'd carry so much speed, and the first couple of times you go through there, you're like, whoa. You're like, well, it's blind.
It's blind, and the road, because of the crest of the road, it changed through there as well.
Just wants to suck you to that barrier. Yeah. And I think one time I either clouded it or someone did and collected a bunch of us. You come around the corner, you're like, oh.
Yeah.
It's parking lot.
Yeah. But I remember we got the rocks turning to 18.3, 18.4.
Wow.
Down that straightaway.
Holy
just screaming. Shit. The TTs. The old Rocket TTs.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's kind of fast forwarding a little bit into almost present day, if you will. But when you said that you were doing more and more racing in the IKF stuff like that, and then you ended up taking a break. Before you end up doing that break, and we can get to that in a second, you got the second place. Is there any championships under the belt, or some big wins in that time period? Because, as you say, this is the development of Paul Bonilla, the driver, right? You're in your mid to late 20s going into your 30s.
So, yeah, the novice thing was a club, whatever, SoCal Sprinters or Tri-C thing. Then the Region 7, actually the first thing I did there was called Club Yamaha. And I'm pretty sure it was Superbox. I don't remember if it had a pipe or not. But ironically, so that was... maybe that was 96, and then 97 I moved up to the full deal. But we had a great championship racing against Jesus Vasquez.
Aha.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So Jesus, he was a kid, man. He was a teen. and then Burt Jenner.
I don't know this one.
I haven't heard that name yet.
Yeah, Burt Jenner, as in Caitlyn Jenner, Brody Jenner.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so Burt was part. So he was good friends with Kurt Christensen and Kevin Christensen, Matt Johnson.
I think I met this guy out here actually.
Chad
really?
Turner. Yeah, he's a
Bro-
big.
Brody did one of the Jenner kids did a birthday party out here, and we did a private thing for him. And one of the guys was talking to me, one of his other brother, who was a lot more on the normal side, not on the Kardashian side of things, I guess you could say.
Right.
He was talking about karting and stuff he used to do. So I think that's him. That's pretty cool.
Big guy, shaved head.
Yep.
Yep. And remember, there was last few years, there was some multi car racing discipline where it was like a reality show, and they were at Willow, and they did, I think, the razors, and then plus they did like regular asphalt stuff. And I think he won that.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it was a few years ago. Yeah, it was funny because I just remembered that whole gang. My parents were out of town, and they all stayed at my parents' house during a Test and Thunder race. It was one of those, party weekends, drinking with a bunch of young Carter kids. I was the oldest of them. They were all, teens. But, yeah, great group of guys. So, so we're talking about 97 IKF. You know what? Didn't win any big. Well, I won the Club Yamaha thing, got my Region 7 jacket and all that stuff. But again, that's like a novice.
He still wears a jacket.
I should have wore it today.
Yeah, there you go.
And then did the regular Region 7 thing, and had some good races, some seconds, some podiums, but didn't actually. I mean, the kids were tough to beat. These were, Colin Fleming, Doug's son, was still a junior. Travis Irving was still a junior. But
So you were on the older side of senior while the kids are moving up.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's Derek's life right now, actually.
But I remember like Brandon Witt, the Witt family, El Cajon, them, NASCAR, they've had quite a presence in racing. And he was on the team. This is all pits. Back then it was all pits performance.
Right.
And remember Doug telling me we were racing our first race, probably like, I don't know, maybe it's like 99 or something. And he had moved up. Brandon had moved up from junior to race senior. And it is, we all kind of like earn our own deal. And sometimes we won't pay attention to what this junior kid does, or that masters, or this senior, whatever. But he moved up, and I guess I raced against him in senior at some whatever race at Adams. And I guess I held him up like for quite a bit, or he had trouble getting around me. And he was already an up and comer and going to go places, But I remember him telling Doug, and Doug telling me, he goes, yeah, Brendan Witt goes, Bonilla's fast, like shocked, like surprised, right? Like this old guy, But by that time I was probably, later 20s, and there's this kid who's, 14, 15 when they first raced senior. Like, wow, I didn't think old guys can actually still wheel.
Right.
Yeah.
He obviously hadn't run it with Billy Cleveland or anything like that yet.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Billy's the gold standard for fast,
For always.
for that XY,
right.
that graph on the XY axis of age and speed.
Yeah.
He just keeps getting faster and faster.
Yeah. No, yes, Billy's tough to beat. Like any weekend beating Billy is good, for sure. But then, a realization like, wow, can I, 10 years from now, can I still be
Right.
at that level? I don't know. I'm already hurting like I'm in my 60s. Back in that day, we were doing like what we're doing here coming out for club races. It was Saugus for LAKC.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and in fact, it was one of those where you would could show up at 5:30 in the morning, and I think they even had 6 a.m. drivers meetings sometimes.
Wow.
And you could be done by 12:30. And part of that was some people would hightail it back here to Paris, and by 2:00
Do that club race.
do that club race afternoon to evening. Yeah, pretty cool.
Wow. That's awesome.
I think it was Brian Phillips, and I was talking about that. I'm like, man, if I get up around lunchtime, I'm going to probably grab brunch and maybe show up for the first heat. The other one, I'm like, I'll miss practice and qualifying,
Wow.
But
So
to
much racing.
have that kind of race day is pretty cool.
Oh, for sure, for
Yeah.
sure. And then that obviously segued into or moved to Irwindale when that
For LAKC.
Yeah. So that was 99, 2000. I was still doing IKF stuff, traveling here and there. The only nationals I did, I forgot, was 97 Marshalltown, Iowa. I wasn't really prepared for it. So, 40 kids. I'm like back there in 20, whatever.
And you're still all with Pitts at this time?
Yeah, still
Okay.
with Pitts. Remember, Doug and I drove the trailer all the way out to Iowa. I was like, whoa, my first nationals.
Yeah.
That was fun. Just did okay.
How'd you get started with Pitts? How'd that? Because you started out of the back of a pickup, and then
Right.
when you first got going, so how's that Pitts connection happen?
I think it was, like I said, Doug just giving me a motor, seeing that I was like maybe up and comer and struggling, gave me a motor. Smart engine builders do that. They're like, hey, you want to run this? Like, well, I don't know how much. Just run it. There was a lot of that back then.
Yeah.
Just like, here's this, the guys have 20 motors in their trailers. So,
And obviously you do well, and now you're in.
well, right. So it was one of those where like, okay, I'm sold, get the pit suit, sign up for it. Back then it was Top Kart that they were on. It was a JT96, I think, was the chassis I got on. So yeah, I guess it was 96. Yeah, so that was the pits thing for a number of years. Did club racing, and then I had the jet ski business already in 99, so I was just super busy with that.
And are you married at this point? How's
No.
life going?
So yeah, met my wife in 97. She managed to come out, watch a couple kart races, you know how they are in the beginning, like bright eye and bushy tail, like, wow, he raced cars, it's exciting.
Karts.
Or karts, right?
Yeah.
And then,
You get him in with cars, and you're like, oh yeah, you must have just heard me wrong.
right. That excitement lasts for like maybe a year or two, and then they're like, okay, well, have fun.
Yeah,
I'll see
exactly.
you when you get home.
Yeah, let me know.
Right.
I'm not spending all day at the bloody racetrack.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not that exciting to be out here, unless you're us and in it. So yeah, and then we didn't get married. We were together for 5 years before we got married. Weren't in a rush. I mean, we knew where it was going to be, So yeah, 2002 got married.
Was there any admiration going to cars, or you're in the karting?
That's a good question. Yes, absolutely. And that was one of those after left for 5 years. So what ended up happening is the real estate business and the jet ski business kind of phased out any chance of being able to race. And then 2002 was a get married, buy a house. 2004, getting pregnant, 5 daughters born, and typical guys, right? We're like, okay, I have this baby. All it does is just poop diapers and cry and scream, and it's like, you know what? And this is literally my thought. It's like, okay, well, when she can like catch a softball or can actually play in a few years, give me a call. But I'm out back to the track,
Right.
and made some money. You're happy, honey. You don't have to work for a while because business was going good. I'm gonna go race, and that was in the form of Barber Dodge.
Oh, okay.
So that was Skip Barber in the.
So you don't even go back to karts.
No.
You went to
Wow.
No. I was a baller at that point, man. I'm gonna make it big. A couple of years in that, and move up to like Indy cars and Formula One. I'm there.
Yeah. Naturally, when you're in your
easy
early
path.
30s, that's the path. That's exactly what you do.
Right. So I figured I'd give it a shot. And it's it's those school cars that, I mean, they're winged, but there's not much to
Right.
the
Yeah.
downforce. They look cool.
All momentum and stuff like
Well,
that.
and you're
yeah.
still on, I believe, radial tires and stuff like that.
Yeah,
too.
it's a radial tire. It's I don't know. I guess they're 900 pounds, if I recall correctly. 5-speed sequential gearbox on a Dodge Neon motor. It's 200 or not, maybe not even that. I think it was like 180 horsepower. But power to weight, it teaches you exactly what you need to know, what you need to get used to.
And how'd that go?
You know what? It was fun because I did 2 schools. We did the basic and the advanced. The basic at Laguna Seca, the advanced at, I believe it was Road America.
Oh, wow.
Which is, a track. It's 4 miles. Just flying up that straightaway, and then you see, the hill, and you climb it, and you're like, oh my God, I'm going right to the clouds. And
You got to downshift to get back up the hill. You're starting to burn
Right.
out of RPM.
Oh yeah.
It's
and
like
then,
going to the grapevine right there.
Yeah.
so that was epic. The carousel, the King, Canada Corner, super fun track. Then I'm like, okay, it's like whatever it is, it's a couple grand for those schools. No problem, got that. Okay, let's sign up for our first race at Laguna Seca, and then it's like, $4 grand.
And
It's
it's all still the Barber Dodge series now?
Yeah,
Okay.
now it's the West Series, I think it was. It wasn't the National. The National they offset weight and lead, so because I remember
You said it was 2005?
5. So I'm on with Patrick Barrett, Alexander Rossi,
Yeah.
this kid that just raced, what's his name? He raced an IndyCar last year or two. I can't think of it. Him and his dad were racing against us. So yeah, and I think the first race was
But the
actually
kids are barely getting armpit hair in your.
yeah. And this is the beginning of them letting I remember Rossi was probably 14 and like 90 pounds.
Yeah.
And already the competitive whiner side of us, right? And I'm like, oh, they're not offsetting weight. He's 90 pounds. He's 3 times faster.
Right.
Right. It's like, damn it. And consistently he was. I mean, obviously you're 160, 170 pounds, even though it's, a car. But, I remember, what's his name? Who was a school coach. I can't think of his name right now. Went on to race sports cars. He's like, yeah, he goes 3 tenths, 70 pounds. He's like, yeah. He goes, for sure. So it's like, it was what it was. I mean, but yeah.
Well, at least his reaction wasn't like, no, you could find that as a driver. Like, no, you're doing what you can for what you are,
For sure. Yeah. So, no, I mean, it was fun. Got to do Sebring. There was a Vegas track that is outside the oval. Mm-hmm. That's a little road course there. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's mixed in like a bunch
It's on the complex, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, where a bunch of industrial, warehouses are. Like you could drive right by it, not even know it's there. I mean, you could literally have one hiding right over here. Same thing.
Right.
Yeah. So that was fun. Definitely won a couple races in that. But yeah,
You were just forking out too much money, huh?
that's it.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
One weekend after another.
Yeah, and then they do this upsell thing. We're like, okay, if you want to fly on Wednesday night, you can do the Thursday deal. So that $4,000 turns into $5,000 or $6,000 for race weekends. So yeah, I mean, hey, we all know in karting you can have big championship years, traveling, nationals, pro tour, whatever. It's like it's probably best if you don't really look at the total bill.
Right, yeah.
But if you look at it, you're like, oh wow, I spent like $60,000 this year.
At the end of the year, you're like, ooh.
We were just talking to some guys that do a ride and drive series that want to bring back this national event. And it was 3 days of racing, 2 days of practice, but they're talking about trying to get people in from out of state. I'm like, the guy that pays $50 for a league race ain't gonna want to come out spend $500 on an entry. But then, oh wait, I got to pay a grand for hotel, all that shit.
You're here for a week.
And before you know it, after the entry fee, you're like, oh shit, I got to get there.
Yeah.
Entry fee is not, when we're talking about traveling, right? Entry fee is not the expensive part.
Right.
Even if we're talking about a ride and drive. But
Yeah, I mean, and, things have changed a lot. I mean, a bunch of us do miss the, out of a pickup truck, not a gigantic team, like, Bill and I were talking about this the other day, Cleveland. We showed up to Andy's race at Buttonwillow a couple months ago. He just showed up in his pickup truck. I mean, I happened to be, I actually, no, I did take my own rig, my own deal. And it's cool. It's nice to just be able to do
a little
it.
bit more laid back.
Totally. I mean, obviously the competitiveness, we're still there. We still have all our tools. We have our snipers. Yeah. But yeah, we're not there with, spare chassis and 3 motors and, and all that. And while, you can do some data, there's a bunch of us old timers, it's just the seat of the pants, Billy, a bunch of all of us, we can get a pretty good feel as we come off the track. I mean, yeah, the people that really know their data, that's like, they can tell a difference on a gear or whatever, one jet and really, drill down into it. But, I mean, I'm glad I came up in the time that I came up because you just had to learn it the old school way.
Right.
You didn't even have dash timers most of the time.
Yeah.
There wasn't anything like that.
Oh, no, we did. The Digitron, big all square box.
Yeah. No, I like, some of us didn't because we didn't have any Digitron. We couldn't afford no bloody Digitron.
And I'll tell you, man, when you hit,
strap on the Casio to that thing and hit time.
I did.
Awesome, Casio.
I did.
I was gonna say.
I had a Casio and I would strap it right to the top and I would do my own
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like other people did too.
Well, but
actually, I've never heard that, but that sounds brilliant. That's
man.
God, I should have thought of that as a kid.
Yeah.
It's just how my dad with a stopwatch.
Which
we're going to be doing this in 10 years, but I had to strap on my Apple Watch and scroll through the screens.
I mean,
the GPS wasn't working.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, it worked at Adams because it's such a long straightaway. You had time to reach up and find the little top button. And
Yeah.
Think, but I mean, like here or other places, you wouldn't have that much
before
time.
you know it, that straight's over.
Yeah.
Measly 550 feet. Yeah. When you're doing the Barber Dodge deal, like you said, you won a couple of races and things are going pretty well. Was it enough? We did say, okay, you're spending hand over fist a little bit. So did you still have the drive to maybe I can keep doing the cars thing, or was the financial burden, if you will, or the cost, I should say, was that enough to kind of go, you know what? If I'm going to go racing, I know a cheaper way to do it.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's, in your mind, you think, oh, people are going to notice. I'm going to get an agent. I'm going to, start figuring out how to get a budget together and sponsors. But yeah, realistically, it was, let's go back and kart and stay in shape.
Yeah.
And, shortly thereafter, the other part of it too is, hey, it's one thing if you're 16, 17, 18,
Right.
You're doing this when you're in your 30s. It's like, okay, let's be honest. This is really, I maybe initially, back when I was younger, thought about like, okay, karting is a stepping stone. But, once you learn to appreciate the sport for what it is and realize, I mean, hey, this last race at Pat's Acres, we're still learning things every day. That's part of the excitement.
Right.
It's part of the fun. It's like, whoa, I learn this, learn that, and so that's what keeps you going. And, the sport as a whole is its own thing. I mean, it's always interesting because you hear people that kart their whole life and they're not into motorsports. Like they don't watch Formula One.
Yeah.
Like they don't care.
Yeah.
They're like, no, I'm into karting. It's like, whoa,
That's kind of me.
Right.
I mean, I do, but yeah, it is odd. You'll have people who are either you're big into cars, but you don't like racing, right? You're big into watching it on TV, but you don't do it, or whatever it is. But yeah, it's kind of an anomaly.
Yeah, like my wife's brother, he's amazing artist. He'll go to car shows and motorcycle shows, and for a while he was doing pinstriping.
Oh, cool!
And he can draw some amazing graphics and like design tattoo stuff, and like all kinds of stuff for paint jobs. And he just loves car shows. It's like just put it up on blocks and just polish it, and it looks beautiful. It's like I look at that and go, well, turn it on, make it move, make it do something.
Yeah.
I mean, you probably noticed. I mean, my karts can sometimes, when they're new, be clean for a little bit, but for the most part, more times than not, they're not the cleanest rig. I don't clean them between every session. I don't, sometimes I'll get detailed and take everything apart, but I don't know.
You're not going for best in show.
I'm not. And in fact, maybe there's a slight part of my subconscious that goes, hey, I won with this piece of crap looking thing.
Right. Yeah.
There's a little badge of honor there.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it is what you do out on course. We're not trying to get the gold or the blue ribbon on the side for how it looks. However, everybody's probably heard a clean kart's a happy kart, it's a fast kart. So at least, Derek, you got to clean the rear bumper when you want to get people to help you.
Yeah, I was pretty good about always grabbing the front of my 206. Hey, Chris GMR, can you grab that rear? Perfect.
Yeah, and at 206, right, we're flinging Chang oil all the time around right where it needs to be.
In the middle of the episode, just a few minutes ago, I messaged Matt Johnson, like, any Paul Bonilla stores. And what I was hoping would be funny was just nothing but nice, so it was really disappointing. But no, he has nothing but the best things to say about you. But what he does say, and we'll get into some of the stats he mentioned, but one of the things he does say was you're one of the guys that get the most out of the equipment, whether, a few years old or whatever, you're always able to get the most out of what you had. I know for instance, every now and again you break out the old Tony kart here, and you do some laps on that. Maybe you go racing every once in a while with that.
Yeah, no, that was a thing. And part of what I was saying earlier about not having the cleanest kart, that's a little either shout out or shot across the bow to Heddervik. So Jason, if you're listening, maybe every once in a while you can pick up a rag and clean the kart. But yeah, no, he's 99% of the time he's working on something to make it go faster.
Mm-hmm.
And I am too. But yeah, as far as getting the most out of the equipment, okay. So that started out like God, I forget what it was. I think we were at like a 2012 race, a pro tour or something. And I'm out there with a beat up 09 Tony kart that had been bent and thrown in a trash dumpster. And that Jason fished out and said, oh, I can straighten this. I'm like, oh, okay, dude, I don't know. And he'd straighten it, and it would last for a couple sessions, and you'd see us on the grid, and he'd be like either jumping on it or pulling it up and down.
On the grid.
On the grid. Yeah, he could just, feel a left front or right front with me sitting in the cart. He'd just pick it up, and he could feel that extra 2, 3, 4.
A little bit heavier, lighter.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and, to be honest, even here when we switch directions, right, if you do like counterclockwise, bunch, and then you flip the other direction, I'll go down the straightaway the first lap, and I'll be like, whoa, it's like pulling, And again, that's maybe, an older tapped out go-kart, outcome. But, so every once in a while, I do that. I mean, it's great if I can get on a new kart every once in a while, but more times than not, it's just my old equipment. And, so I think I'm due for an updated kart.
Is there a brand you prefer? Because I know you obviously when you're with Andy, you do the Burrell deal, but you do own an OTK.
Yeah, good question. My thought has been, and again, there's all different vectors in this, right? If you're chasing a championship, you're on the road, you're traveling, which I haven't been traveling a lot. Granted, we just did Andy's race, the rock race up at Pat's Acres, but for the most part, I haven't done too many nationals in the last 5 to 7 years. It's, as we were saying before, it's both, time with work and budget and so on. But for, a lot of these local races, it just is whatever cart we have available. I'll hop in anything, if it the opportunity arises. What I've found, and maybe it's just me, but the OTKs seem to be for where I'm at in my career, so to speak. Like older masters, busy, don't have the time to throw a bunch of axles at it. Just it's almost like an arrive and drive. Just
a little bit turnkey.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So for a lazy man's way of going about racing,
that's a good answer though. That's and it's real.
Yeah. I mean, there's other carts that certainly can be faster, but you got to be on top of it. The tuning window is narrower. It's it's pointier, so to speak.
Yeah, that's exactly that, right? I mean, every go-kart manufacturer has probably been able to put it out on pole or put cross the line first. But it's how much work do you have to put into it?
Yeah.
And how much expertise do you need? Like, that's the other thing, too. There's a big difference between, let's just say, throwing out a brand, the VLR chassis with for the 206. If you just jump into a VLR, its window is pretty solid right out of the gate. Like, it's kind of the easy button for getting a general good run.
You've got to tune yourself out of it pretty good.
Yeah. The VLR, in my opinion, is like the OTK for the 206 game. Now, if you're listening to this and you're on the other side of the country, you could be like, oh, no, it's the MGM or it's this or whatever it may be. But if you don't have to do a lot of work to it and you can just kind of go out there and concentrate on your driving, that's a whole another positive to it. Does that mean that their other ones aren't also able to kick ass and get W's? Absolutely not. It's one of those scenarios where I've heard multiple times any kart can win if you know how to tune it.
Yeah.
So if you know what that package needs, then you've got a really good shot at making it happen. And I also think it kind of depends. Once as you say, at this point in your career, you start learning who you are and how you are as a driver and what you need. Like, I had to make a huge adjustment when I went from the VLR to the OTK.
Right.
Because the OTK was so much better in the front. Like, it had so much front. And again, VLR is not a 100cc chassis anyway, but that adjustment and realizing that I like to drive off the rear, not the front, you start to learn, like, hey, maybe this kart's better for me. And that's where I think driving different pieces for the sake of, like you just said, I'll hop in anything. You can still glean some information. You can learn some things by driving different stuff.
Oh, absolutely. It definitely makes you better. I mean, that works both with chassis and in different motor packages. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Jumping from 100cc to, air-cooled to, a high horsepower water-cooled motor. I mean, admittedly, I've not really raced shifters. I've practiced a couple times. I definitely need to practice a lot more. It's more fitness, more work, more everything. But yeah, in general, and I think we talked about this a little bit before, like, road racing, different disciplines. It's all good because you come back and you The best thing is to go to a track day like we have with Full Throttle Karting with Andy, where he does his client deals, and there's 6 karts. And part of what I do is get here first thing and drive every single kart. You know, it's what you guys do. People don't realize, hey, you're here every day. You jump into 20 different karts. I mean, you're going to feel a subtle difference.
Yeah.
You know, and it's
sometimes less subtle.
Yeah. Jesus.
And it's great because, you know, it's something that a new person, a new driver, I mean, I highly recommend if they cannot do anything like that, it's definitely a good idea, because you think about how difficult it is to feel a change when you're new. And, you know, it takes 15, 20 minutes to make that change. You wait for next, you know, time to go on track, next session.
Sure. Right.
You can only do 2 or 3 or 4 of those a day. And with the new person, they're like, I guess I felt something different. You know, it's so, you know, just innocuous. It's like you need, you know, a really good comparison. Jumping in, when we do these track days, I was saying, I've jumped in 7 karts in 15 minutes and literally go out and do 3 laps in each one. And wow, talk about like, oh, okay. Oh, this one does this, that one does that. Mm-hmm. You know, that's a great learning experience.
Yeah,
Nothing
for
better than
sure,
that.
for sure. Going back to the car stuff there, and you realize that, all right, I'm spending a lot of money to try this thing out. I'm not going to do it. What is the transition then? Because now you said you're out of karting for a period of time with how busy you were, the family, and then you don't get right back into karting into cars. You realize that, hey, karts is the way I want to go. How and what do you choose to get back into when you decide to go karts?
Okay, good question. So this is 2005, end of 2005, beginning of 2006. And Steve Zorilla, who had bought one of my old karts in like 2002 or 3, had been fast at it for a few years and even sold that and upgraded. And he'd been keeping me in the loop of like, hey, you know, have you heard of this new Rotax motor? And I didn't know much about it, but, you know, all the benefits supposedly of, okay, you don't have to rebuild it that often, you know, easy to maintain, you know, it's spec racing, so on and so forth. So I can't remember if I went to the track with him one day to check it out. Maybe I did. I drove it briefly. And then, you know, I'm like, where'd you get it? He goes, oh, I got it from this guy, Andy, at Full Throttle Karting. And kind of ironic because that's only like 10 minutes from my house. And, you know, one thing I wanted to bring up earlier and I didn't is, you know, hey, how do people get into karting? Well, or who do they align with? A lot of times it's whoever you're geographically close to.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, back in the 90s, it was Yamaha of America. And, you know, so whether it's, you know, we talked about BMX and all that earlier, same thing. It was the local bike shop that was, you know, a mile away, ride your bike there.
Right.
So you support your local business, your local shop. And, you know, Andy setting up shop here in Orange County, which was, I mean, I know there was Phil Giebler's dad doing the Track Magic thing. There was a few others here and there. I know Tom Kutcher had a shop, but I don't think I ever went to it. So it was pretty cool to have a newer shop that, you know, was nearby. And so that's how that worked out. And so, yeah, went in there, picked up a motor. And, I mean, that's really the second, you know, that's the whole return to karting and the second set, so to speak, or whatever.
So 2006, you're getting back in the game for karting and this Rotax deal. You said Steve kind of put you onto that deal. What was all right, so you talked to Andy. He's doing, at that time, Gatorz, I believe, is rolling, right? So as you get back into it, you already know what you'd spent the previous year doing cars. It's going to be pretty easy to be less than that number.
For sure.
What do you decide to actually do? Do you kind of dip a toe, or do you kind of go, hey, let's go racing? Sorry, and how old are you? Are we masters yet?
Yeah, so masters are ready. So what is that, 2005? So wait, how old are we? We get out a calculator.
Carry the one.
Oh, wait a second. It's my birthday today.
Oh, that's right.
So I'm 53 today. So in 2021. So that was 2000, what?
16 years?
16 years ago. So yeah, so I was late 30s.
So you're definitely in masters. And at the time, when you raced before, I know that masters wasn't as much a thing in the 90s. You know, they had like Super Box or Super this or Novice this. Masters wasn't really a thing until we started getting into the 2000s, I believe, if I remember correctly. So do you automate, oh, I'm just going to go run with the kids again? Or like, oh, wait, Masters.
That's a good question.
I add 7 questions at the same time.
Yeah,
right?
no, I mean, there was a Masters already because I'm pretty sure that's what Steve and other guys are running. And, it was already pretty healthy because turns out I didn't know that this all started like in like 2000, 2001. People were on the Rotax. And then by like 2002, it was already a pretty big, Andy was building the thing up. I forget what year it was, but somewhere shortly thereafter, I remember they had, I don't know if it was, I know there was a road race festival here in the later 2000s, but I think at one of the Streets of Willow Gatorz races, there was like 60 Masters. It was something just like off the chart crazy. Like you would think it's like a national event, or, like a Worlds. I mean, Worlds has like 90 guys in a class or something. So it was Masters, and it was diving into kind of both. I think I did some Gatorz, and then I did some SKUSA. And, Jerry Henderson was doing and winning Masters races in a Motori, I think, back then.
Yeah, that was back in it was Tag Masters, and so they had multiple engine packages that you could run. Right.
Right, so you had people in Leopards, Rotax, just all different brands, and it was kind of cool, actually. I mean, obviously, I get and understand, spec racing, and it does make things closer. But on the same token, for the tuning, engine builder, gearhead side of things, in the different weights and the different motors, I mean, it's kind of fun too.
Sure,
it had its place.
Yeah. So you in 2006, you get back into the Rotax deal. You're doing a little bit of the SKUSA stuff. You're doing the Gatorz stuff. Did you do club stuff as well? Like how all in did you go? Was it specifically regional travel racing, bigger stuff, or were you doing a little bit of everything?
So 06 was a coming back year, and it was clubs and, light traveling as, Pro Kart would be, around here, Button Willow, what have you. And Gatorz was mostly all around here as well. So no national events, I don't think, until 07, going back to doing some national stuff. Went to Centennial, Colorado for the Rotax Nationals. With Andy's team, I remember he had like 12, 15 people in the trailer.
Once you bought the motor from Andy, was that the relationship right there? You were pitting with him from there on? For sure.
And it's interesting because he was at pits with Doug. There was an era there where a bunch of guys were there, and I remember him vaguely, but we didn't really connect.
He's just the front counter guy.
Yeah. Oh, some kid that needed a job on the weekends. Yeah.
Poor Andy.
He's that boisterous and annoying guy at times, but yeah. So no, that's how that kind of got started. Yeah, and it's pretty much been fairly solid since. There's been some races where, he wasn't going to, once his series got big and everyone went their separate directions between SKUSA. I was still doing SKUSA stuff and going with teams to that, with Nash, with Ryan Perry, been involved here and there with different teams, all over the place, which is cool because you get exposure to different ways of doing things, tuning, some people had data early on. It's been a great experience.
So you go to, you've been working on things in 2006, kind of cutting your teeth, getting things figured out again, learning this new package, because you've been gone since, was it 99?
2000, yeah, 99, 2000.
Right, yeah. So you've been gone for 5-6 years out of karting, and now you're back. I presume we talked about it earlier, like toe plates and stuff like that. The difference is there. Now we're doing lasers and things, but not a huge, ginormous change from those 5-6 years in the technology level, but the engine package is completely different, right? Water-cooled 125cc versus the 100cc direct drive and things like that you were doing before. And you cut your teeth in 2006, and you're part of the FTK deal for the 2007 Grand Nationals. Are you going into the Grand Nationals as learning experience, or you're like, no, I know what the hell I'm doing, and this is championship status?
Yeah, perfect question. Yeah, I did not know what I was doing. I was okay, but it's funny, we were talking earlier about John Crow. I think we qualified 17th and 18th.
Wow.
And that was a thing for us for many years. It's like, I'd never say I was better than really any driver. It's just a matter of how you have it set up that weekend, Are you on your game? Did you prepare properly? All those things. But yeah, John and I would be like together all the time on track, no matter where. It was kind of annoying at times too.
You're like, we got to get out of the same camp.
I was just gonna say,
Well,
and under the same tent.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yep. That's probably a big part of it. But yeah, so I think I had some bad luck. I think was maybe a DNF one of them, and then I think I had to like start from the back of the main, and come to find out, ironically, later on. Because I wasn't friends with Heddervik back then, but he was tuning for Eric Jackson.
Oh, okay.
And they had figured out, for some reason, it was really cold and slippery and very little grip. And they had figured out like 22 to 24 pounds of pressure in these mojos at Centennial, Colorado. Mm-hmm. We didn't get them out. We're out there going, I don't know, 13, 14 pounds.
Right.
It's like...
Made a big swing out of it, though.
Yeah. I mean, we were just completely just out of the loop. Just missed the boat. So, yeah, I mean, it was good to go. It was obviously fun. You have a lot of guys under one tent and, one of the bigger teams there at the time. And then, yeah, after that, it just continued on. So I was 07. So, yeah, it was a good year because I won the Pro Kart Challenge.
Oh, nice.
And that was racing against Jackson and Henderson, a bunch of the guys that, were on at the time. And it was interesting because we were able to, I think you could make one engine change per year.
Right. Yeah, with the different manufacturers.
Oh,
yeah,
right.
You could do one a year.
So I timed it perfectly where I think we would race like Qualcomm with a long straightaway out in the parking lot. We raced Grande with a long straightaway. So I timed my change from the Rotax of most of the tracks that was fast to where like, long straightaway, put on a Leopard, rev that thing to, I forget what it rev at, 16 or 17,000. Mm-hmm. And managed to keep that momentum and win some races and win the championship. So that was a good year.
So, on that Grand Nationals, you go there with a Rotax deal, but you're already having success at the SKUSA game.
Yep.
So at SKUSA, you said the championship is there in 2000 and 2007 for Pro Kart.
Yep.
And that's in the tag deal. And then you go to a specific Rotax and you obviously are a horrible qualifier. But I mean, going into that, having the success in the SKUSA game, did you not think it was going to translate directly over and like you're going to be top of the game automatically? Especially, and I'll add, under the FTK tent with Andy, who is right there in the Rotax game and himself a phenomenal Masters driver.
Yeah.
So did you think that was going to be like, I've got an absolute shot at this thing, or like I would assume you go into it going, I've got a shot, considering how well you've done up to that point.
Yeah, I did think that. I just didn't think I'd be that far off the pace when I got there. You know. And again, local knowledge. This has been a recurring theme for a lot of us, right? Like, can you go out there the month before, or do a club race? The Worlds, the people that can go out there and pre-test for the Worlds is a huge thing because that really held me back as well. People like, Derek Wang and others who get out there and get it done. I mean, it's a huge help. Going back to a track like, I know how to drive it. I know where the rubber line's going to be.
The nuances.
Now I'm just tuning the thing versus you get out there for 3 of the 6 days. You're like, what?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was a fun experience at that nationals, but it was just pretty much getting back into national competition.
Okay.
And understanding, that whole dynamic and really just gearing up for it because, I didn't have a spare motor. I didn't have, it was all just, one of everything. Mm-hmm. Subsequently to that, then it was, really serious in 2008. I think we went to Shawano for the Rotax Nationals while doing, at this point I'm doing Tri-C, Pro Kart, Gatorz local races, Rotax Nationals, and I think, I don't know if it was 08, 09. Well, no, I think, it was SuperNats. I have to look back. I scanned through the other day, and I think it was like over 250 races from when they were counting them on my laps after, I think, like 2007 or something.
Wow.
So if you go back before then to like all the Region 7 stuff, I mean, it's hundreds of races,
Yeah.
How can you not remember all of them? I don't understand.
Yeah, right. Right. Yeah, old age. So that 2008 was good. Shauna was on pole for the Rotax Nationals in the wet. And then, I think I might even won. No, I didn't win any heat races. It just started going backwards from there after it dried out. So apparently had too much grip. Because you practice and then it rains. You're like, oh, I'm on. You're like, wait a second. When it dries out, I could be in trouble.
Right. Yeah.
Had you had much rain experience before that?
Interestingly, not too much. There was at Moran, I remember an epic battle that John Crow and I had at I can't remember if it was a Gatorz or a SKUSA race, but we were both on Burrell M32s that they just had a ton of grip in the wet. They were just beautiful to drive. Like I would welcome a wet race anytime with that kart. Later on, I haven't really found a kart that was that easy. I mean, Tony Kart's been decent in the wet, but I mean, I struggled with the SuperNats once in the wet. So
the Pro Kart Championship happens in 2007. The Grand Nationals don't go swimmingly for you, but there's another big race that happens at the end of the year, SuperNats. You have the success at Pro Kart. Do you go into this? You do the SuperNats that year, and does that go well? And did you do the SuperNats in 2006 when you first came back?
No, I think 07 was the first. And what they did is they included a Rotax class.
A Rotax specific.
Yeah. So it was Andy, myself. I mean, it was a decent amount of people. And it was at Sam Boyd Stadium. Yeah.
So you win the Pro Kart deal with the mixture of engines and tag.
Right.
But then they have a Rotax only class at SuperNats.
Right.
Oh, interesting.
Yep. And it was funny because I still get grief from it, on it from Andy every once in a while. He was on pole for like 20 some odd minutes of the qualifying or whatever, 18 minutes, and on lap 23. It's one of those where you could hot pit.
Okay.
And sometimes you come in, tires cool a little bit.
Right.
And granted, it was Mojo's, right? So, this were...
So it was Rotax rules, essentially, this entire class. Because they weren't running Mojos on everything else, right? They were probably on the MGs, yeah.
Yeah. So it was one of those where I was able to, come in, hot pit, let things cool down, adjust, go back out. And I pipped him in the last lap or two, last couple minutes of qualifying, and got pole. Yeah, he was so pissed.
And again, under the same tent.
Oh, for sure.
And,
for sure.
And Andy is full throttle karting, so.
So what happened when you got back to the tent?
I didn't even know. I didn't know who had what or whatever. I mean, I guess maybe I'd found out I got pulled, but I didn't know that I had pipped him at the last second. He's just shaking his head. Yeah. I mean, and it's great because, Masters, to your question earlier about like, okay, was it Masters or whatever? Yeah, Masters wasn't a thing. And, definitely have to credit Andy and people that supported that whole Masters thing. Apparently there's a lot of us that, wanted to race and were older, to get it to the size that it was, in any series,
Yeah.
So
you end up snagging the old pole there, and
how was the rest of your week?
I was going to say the tent starts out stoked.
Yeah, and I can't remember if I won all the heats or what happened, but I had some good battles with John Crow again, and I think he was probably perched to like draft past me last lap. It was really close. Like I barely hung on. And, so I won the main with him. Like it was one of those where it's like 0.0, cause they're like alongside of you.
Yeah.
So, that was,
So you end up winning the Pro Kart Championship and the Rotax specific SuperNats in 2007.
Yep.
But Grand National doesn't go too well for you for 2007. So, okay, Grand National's not so good, but you just won the bloody SuperNats.
Right.
I mean, that's pretty stoked right there.
You can only have one.
Yeah.
Pick one, yeah.
Yeah, it's to win that kind of stuff in the same year. That's like, that's like legendary. Some people you've seen Danny Formal, others that have pulled off just huge wins.
Yeah. Yeah. That's pretty awesome. And to come back not being in karting for several years, 2006, I'm going to get my bearings. Yep. And then, okay, I'm just going to go ahead and win the friggin' SuperNats the very next year. Does that kind of set the tone as you go forward from there? We talk about 2008 being a strong year and whatnot, but as you get that success right out of the gate, and again, going back to the 90s, you had mentioned you didn't have, oh my God, success.
No.
But as you turn into a phenomenal Masters driver, definitely a quote household name, if you will, in the industry as a Masters driver right out of the gate.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to say, well, you know what? Honestly, it really was being part of Full Throttle Karting. Andy, he figured out how to tune karts in a just kind of a grassroots. Like I said, we didn't have data too much. I mean, data didn't really arrive until another maybe. I mean, I know some people were probably doing it, but like we didn't embrace it till 6-7 years later.
It was the early stages of it too, for sure.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure it wasn't a common thing in the paddock.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So I mean, I got to give credit where credit is due. That choice and hooking up with his team really was the right way to go. And it's where I think definitely where we had most of all our success.
As you move on from 2007, again that SuperNats win, are you continuing to hit pro tours and stuff like that? Is the national game, like, are you a little bit less club, a little bit more regional or national?
For sure. I mean, the club thing was a great way to come out and like test and keep the rust off and what have you. But it was a lot of traveling, a lot of national stuff. There was a time, and I almost did do it. It was just tough schedule-wise to do like WKA stuff. I would have loved to have done that, or USBKS.
Right.
There's so many opportunities to race in our world. But yeah, it was just mostly the SKUSA Pro Tour. I think, I'm trying to remember my first Pro Tour. I'm guessing it was like 11 or 12.
So a few years later then.
Yeah, a few years later, which I was fortunate enough to win Pro Tour. Pretty sure it was 12. Yeah, because I led the SuperNats that year in the main.
That's back when SuperNats was part of the Pro Tour, yeah.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. And so that's what happened. You're right. I won the Pro Tour as a result of doing well across everything, and I led the damn SuperNats for most of the main. But Leonardo Nian-Cotter, who had, I don't know if he had won already. It's funny because in a couple previous years we crashed out a couple years before down in like whatever 8th, 9th, and 10th. So we were kind of steadily working our way up. And but he won 3 years in a row. And
wow.
I think Billy won 2 years in a row, if I'm not mistaken. Or I don't think it was 3. I think it was 2.
Is that Cleveland?
Yeah, Cleveland. So yeah, there's been a few people that have really killed it. But I was leading the thing, and I thought I was going to win it, but he hunted me down and got me. Yeah, the worst part was looking back at the lap times, and I had settled into a what I thought was a comfortable pace, and then after he passed me, and I was like, oh crap. And then I look at the times, and they're like 0.2 faster from then on out. So it's like, oh great, I settled into a slower pace, and
so now you start going hindsight, going, he might not have been able to catch me if I had just gone.
There you go. That's exactly it. Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, I'd like to say that I knew what pace I was running, but maybe at the time I probably thought that was like it.
It's a little different when you have the carrot too.
Totally.
And you're like, oh shit, I'm not leading now. This is not good.
Yeah. In the pit,
Find a little bit more.
There's a joke in the pit about seeing iDog. So it's like, oh yeah. I mean, we all know following's easier. You know, it's the carrot, but yeah, it's tough to lead. It really is. And people that have won most of the races, leading start to finish, and all heats, all everything. It's like, wow, that's
kudos, yeah.
Heck yeah.
I'd much rather go get it than have to hold on to it. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you almost get another championship there, or another SuperNats. It's a bit of a silver lining that, I just lost the SuperNats.
Yeah.
Hey, still won the national championship though, so you got that going for you.
Yeah.
That's got to be a weird feling there. And did they still do at that time? I think the banquet or whatever was right after SuperNats or right before? No, it was after. It had to be after.
Yeah, it was after in that in one of those giant halls.
Yeah,
it was big. A lot of people. It almost felt like one of those little, like a mini version of like the NASCAR or whatever awards.
Yeah. Banquet at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Right.
You're like, I didn't win. But then you get that opportunity, which has got to be pretty cool.
But you know what? Like the 2007 Pro Kart banquet, they did it at the, I think it was called the Alder something museum. In this industrial complex, you'd have no idea. This guy had this collection of like 300 classic cars. And
Oh,
I guess
cool.
Tom hooked it up where you go in there. It was a catered dinner. You get to walk around, check out all these cars, cars from like 50s, 60s, everything you can imagine. It was just unbelievable. And then the awards, banquet after dinner. And it was pretty cool. I mean, it felt like a giant, like a pro tour, for just being,
A regional championship.
Yeah, it was definitely impressive. So
That's pretty cool. So you've got a few different championships under your belt. We're talking about a national championship in 12, the regional championship, and SuperNats win in 7. And those 12 is almost 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Since 12, I mean, as a national champion, as a SuperNats winner, and almost again twice SuperNats. From that point, like I started getting to know what a Paul Bonilla is right around that 12 mark, right? And so, like I told you, when I got a chance to start doing Masters driving in Carrier the One 2017,
Yeah.
like Paul Bonilla is an established Masters name. Like I want to be on track with you and Crow and these other guys. From 12 on, what is the, because you've been racing almost every year here at a pretty high level. What is the focus for you as a Masters driver moving on? Is it SuperNats wins? Is it challenging the Americas or whatever? And on top of that, what is maybe the crowning achievement, if you will, in that period of time? I know that you got a chance to do a lot of that Rotax stuff, challenge or otherwise. Did you ever find some more success in the Grand Nationals or otherwise?
Was it 2012? We went to South Bend, and the years all blend in. So we went Rotax Nationals at South Bend, somewhere in those years, with Andy and the gang, and it was another, pretty sure, wet qualifying. Put it on pole, won the heats, and then and Andy had been consistently coming up through there. I think Andy even won one of the heat races or the pre-final. And then I think I was running second, third in the main, and someone threw a chain right in front of me. And it was one of those where they, you flinch one direction or the other, but then he changed. He flinched left and then went right, and I had already gone right.
Oh,
and we did
man.
one of these going down the straightaway at a decent clip. And it was just one of those where I was already just stuck on his inside, and he just faded me all the way to the barriers. And it was just
Oh man,
That sucks.
Yeah. And I actually, it lightly bent the axle, and I got going again, but I was down like, 7th, 8th, 9th, and worked my way back up to 5th. And it was one of those insulting as I get going again. Andy goes buying waves. I'm like,
Oh, man.
I think he finished second, so he was on the podium. Yeah, I think at best, I don't know if I would have won that. I maybe at best would have finished second, I think, anyways, based upon, because you always go back and analyze and go lap times and whatever else. So, yeah, there's been a lot of podiums, a lot of seconds and thirds,
But always in the game and always competitive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. But as far as like, a highlight peak, for a few years there, I've been trying to get to the Worlds, right?
Rotax Worlds, right?
Rotax Worlds, because I mean that was pretty epic. I mean, granted, nothing against the races that are having in Italy every year now and the Rock Worlds and all that, but it's the same place. To be able to be on a traveling circus, like I know Eric Jackson did Saudi Arabia, he did I can't remember if he did Portugal, but numerous drivers got to do 2 or 3, change around different places. So was it 2016 when I finally got my Worlds ticket from winning Challenge of the Americas. We went to Portugal, and that was, that was epic. It really was.
We've had a few people on that've got a chance to do some different. I mean, Matt Johnson was able to do the IME Worlds over there, right?
Yep.
What is that? So you win Challenge of the Americas. Challenge of the Americas is January, February, March, typically 3-round deal in the winter, or 3 weekend, 6-round deal, and you get that ticket. Going to the Worlds, like having the opportunity to go do that. What is that like? And it's going to be a little bit different as a Masters driver. Like maybe as a kid, I would think people are like, oh, I can prove myself, or I can. As a Masters driver, you're established where you're at, and I would assume you could soak that up a little bit more and appreciate what the hell's going on.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you hear some of these other drivers we've talked about that went off to Europe and raced direct drive, and like how he got to do it, Billy Cleveland, others, which sounds like an absolute blast. But, being a race fan and always wanting to like grow up and be a race car driver, so to speak, the ability to be able to go to your first worlds and, where they have everything set up parc fermé and I mean, the rules and how organized it is. And I mean, the checking out your equipment where they give you your chassis and your,
I was going to say, because everything's supplied, right? You
everything.
just show up.
You just show up with your helmet and your
Wow.
gear. Yeah. They give you a toolbox. They give you, everything. It's like the closest feeling to like, getting paid to like be a race car driver almost. Granted, yeah, you're still spending some money on some flights and some personal stuff, but
You roll into the track, not having to worry about the go-kart.
Yep.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's a pretty cool feeling, I bet.
It is. It really.
And you bring your own tuner though, and all that. Okay.
Yeah. Yep. Flew out with Josh Huff.
Oh,
he was
cool.
He was my tuner mechanic. Andy is involved with Rotax, so he's there from like a organizational standpoint. But yeah, I mean, just to roll in there and see Rubens Barrichello, driving DD2, and numerous other world renowned drivers and Formula One stars and what have you. It's just like, I mean, it's just cloud nine.
Yeah. It feels like a big event, and when you're on the track, it feels even bigger.
Yeah.
Well, and in previous episodes we talked about like that, especially with the Rob Howden episode, the electric feeling, like when you go to SuperNats, and you can just tell it's different.
Right.
I would assume World Finals, and knowing also everybody earned their way in.
Right.
That's the only way you get a chance to be there in the first place is if
Tickets,
you
yeah.
got a ticket.
And you can't show up with your own equipment.
Right. Exactly
Yeah.
that.
And it's just, I mean, it is pretty darn fair. I mean, the
I was going to
equipment-
ask about the equality. Yeah.
It's imperceptible. It's totally even because you just know, like if you look at the stats year over year, you can see the same drivers, bubble to the top. Doesn't matter what chassis they, because they alternate, might be a Sodi kart, then it might be of, Praga, it might be whatever.
Gotcha.
But they really simplify it in that like the carburetor is sealed. Okay. There are no spare axles, so as far as like the removing of all the different combinations for tuning, it's really simplified. So
Neat.
it's tire pressure, some camber caster, toe out.
Whatever's
not know
already
that.
whatever's already bolted on the cart. That's what you're tuning with.
Yeah.
So you're not
Neat.
trying. You're not going to be able to try different axle. You're not trying different
Nope.
hubs. You're not trying anything.
That's crazy. Yeah, I
I
didn't
didn't
know
know
that
that.
either.
Oh wow! So basically, you get here's the
Mike,
basically.
arrive and drive. That's all you, baby.
No, I love it. Just need to get a ticket.
Yeah.
And also get better. So it's basically box stock. As you get box stock, here you go. And then if it fits inside that parameter for tuning, you can do your ride height, you can do these things here or there, but you're not going to put different stuff on.
Right.
That is cool. I thought you had more than that. It's awesome.
Yeah. No, it really is, whatever, call it 80-90% driver.
That's pretty cool.
And
What chassis were you on when you went there?
I was on a Sodi, so it was in a DD2.
Oh, okay. I was gonna ask, how'd you like the DD2 stuff? I mean, it doesn't sound like you did much of it.
No, and I mean, I loved it. Absolutely loved it. Still an amazing, platform. Mm-hmm. I think what happened was in like 2013, 14, somewhere in there, we showed up to challenge, and Scott Falcone had already out of Colorado had already had a DD2 for a little bit. Alan Rudolph had come back to racing, and he was in a Rotax DD2. Mike Jones, Brent Harper, Crow. So it turned into, it's interesting because you think about like, people like, I'm going to go race, but no, there's only like 20 people, or whatever. You want it to be 30, 40 people, 50 people. Well,
Right.
We have these races with 10, 12, 14 people, but 5 or 6 national champions
Right.
in that small little race.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So at a certain point, like the volume doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's like,
you can't really complain about who you're racing against when it's that.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, we're got to that point right now where I'd rather race against, Billy Cleveland, Derek Wang, and 3 or 4 other guys than have 25 guys where there's a handful, 3 or 4 decent guys, and the rest are like question marks, right? You want to race against
You want the
best.
right people out there.
Yeah,
For sure.
It's nice to say that, oh man, I finished first or whatever out of 30, 40 people. But at the end of the day, let's say you qualify on pole or you qualify towards the sharp end, you're still only racing 4 or 5 people,
Right.
Yeah.
right? So
Whether
all
those
the
other
rest,
ones there or not, you're still there with that same group.
you're racing
Yeah.
4 or 5 people, and the rest of it's ego. Like,
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
what do you give a shit about? Like, no, okay, Grand Nationals, all this other kind of stuff. It's still cool to say that, but at the end of the day, once you start thinking about it, you're racing the group of people around you.
Right.
And if that group of people is, as you say, national champions, former ticket winners, so on and so forth, like,
Right.
I don't need 30 people. I'm racing these 5 badasses right here. This is good.
No, for sure. We've all had those heats where either something broke, got crashed out, start heat 2 or something from 30th spot and work your way up to like 18th, and then the next one you work your way up to like back to the top 10.
Right.
Yeah, it's fun to throw a bunch of passes and move forward, but really racing guys for 27th or 23rd or 20th, 18th, those are just kind of like just quick little passes, and it's not really the same as fighting someone for 5 laps for one position.
Exactly that.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's the fact that you're able to make all those passes, and this is not a dig or a notch against anybody else, but it's one of those scenarios where
sure.
when you have X amount of experience, you probably should be able to do that. You know what I mean? If I have 5 years of experience and I'm going to go against the newbie, I should be able to pass a bunch of newbies or a bunch of new drivers in there because I have the experience. It's not like, it's just flat out like, I've been doing this for X amount of time. You've been doing this for X amount of time. Carry the one. Yeah, I should be able to do that, period. I'm back here because bad shit happened to me, not because that's where I, quote, earned.
Right, and back to your question from earlier, like, okay, well, these championship races, still do some club races? Well, yeah. Do you remember, I don't know if you were here then, but there was that Kart Be Clean series.
That was before my time.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so there was these fun events where, and I don't remember if this event did it, but like any club race where every once in a while they'll be like, oh, we're going to P-pick. We're gonna
Cool.
we're gonna reverse the first and second heat. Any of that kind of stuff. It's like, you know what? If it's not a big championship race, let's have some fun with it. And to your point, if you at a certain level, you should have some skills to where you got to be mindful of the newbie and anticipate this guy's going to do something weird or turn in early or whatever, break early. So you got to kind of dovetail in some of those skill sets with like, I got to be careful, right? To finish first, I got to finish.
Yeah.
So. That's fun too.
Yeah.
Right.
Billy Cleveland mentioned that too. It's like, even on practice days, it's like, as the experienced driver, it's my job
Totally.
to get around everybody else.
Yeah.
Because I'm the one with the experience. This guy, you don't know who you're with. It could be a Paul Bonilla. It could be someone who's just starting out for the first time. It's my job to get around these guys without, you can do the old slide job on them. But if they go, oh, shit, and they end up in the fence, well, that's not very cool for the new guy. On a practice day,
Right.
So it's
Guys just trying to get around the joint.
yeah, got to be aware. And like you said, kind of having all those skill sets of, if you're going to be starting 30th and you've been hanging out inside the top 5 for your entire, career.
Well, so you're you do the Worlds. How's the weekend go though?
Yeah. So in one of the practice sessions, those tracks over there are fast. And
They look like it.
And especially in a DD2.
They look like F1 tracks for a go-kart.
Right.
All mid to top.
Yeah.
Very little low.
And it was one of these, a long straightaway dog leg and then a decreasing radius first turn. And I just carried too much speed and put a wheel off. And it was one of those that had like a scary hill that went down an abyss where you don't know where it ended up after.
Man.
And I took a ride, I think it was like second or third practice session, went down this embankment.
Oh, wow.
Rocks into the radiator, punctured the radiator. Like, oh, yeah, it was.
And you come in and they go, here's some duct tape and some gum. That's what you get.
It's interesting because you go to they have a parts department to, you go check in there, you take the piece, they inspect it, and they give you a new one after you hand them a credit card.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I just bought a, whatever, $300, Rotax DE2 radiator. It's like, okay. So yeah, lost some time in practice. And then one of the 3 heat races, got into it with someone who we, I don't know if it was a tie rod or broken steering. It more than a steering column because I would drive with that. But I think it was a broken tie rod or something, and just had to pull off and take a 33rd, which is bad.
That sucks.
Are they the same way as, say, SuperNats, where you qualify and you end up staying in the same spot every time, or is it you move
Wherever you
up?
finish, you start.
You remember how that?
Yeah, I think it's points, right?
Okay.
Where they average, and then you either continue on to the main. So no, I was wrong on. So it's people from 90 different countries, and it's 70. I think there were 72 in Masters, if you can believe that.
Wow,
that's awesome.
And obviously the main is going to be 30, 35 or whatever.
Right, they got to cut it down.
They got to cut it down. Yeah, so long story short, it was one of those where I ended up in the LCQ out of 30 guys starting like 21st. Oof. And they only took the first 6.
Of course they did.
And it was short. Like you would think, okay, well, give us like 15, 20 laps to sort it out. No, it was like 10 or 11. I was short. 10 or 11 laps. Really quick.
So math is against you already.
Yeah, it was totally, but it was one of those where I went from 21st to like 11th or 9th. I can't remember. It was one of those where I was just a few spots off the transfer. And, when the week started out, I was like 6/10 off the fastest guys. And then by that LCQ, I was like 2/10 off. And I was like, damn, too late,
Yeah.
Is there, thinking back on it, because whenever I think about the big events and I find out, or I look back on where I finished and how I ran, I kind of go back to, and actually this is absolutely the case at the Challenge of the Americas when I was running both 100cc and GP. I look back on the GP events, and at the end, I think about what I know at the end of the Cal Speed round. What could I have done better at Phoenix, Did you do the same thing? Like, is there anything I could have done in the States during the regular season to have learned something?
Just reflecting.
Yeah, and like carry that in. Like, I could have prepared better or learned something. Or is this one of the, because you say 2/10 off. Okay, so you got better by 4. What about the last 2? Or is it just like you had said earlier, had I been able to go there the week prior, or that is it more about that kind of preparation? Not during the regular season where you got the ticket.
Yeah, we all learn at a different pace in different ways, part of me is like, I'm decent on a computer, I'm decent technology-wise. I just never really delved into doing, harvesting my own data and really interpreting it. It's always been, either Josh Huff or, Cameron Johnson, other people who have, you've seen people on data like click, drop, this, that.
Yeah.
They get it done really quick. And like me, it'd be so long before you finally get it figured out, or you just put it off. I'm just going to try to figure out when I get home, which is different than when you're there between sessions. Like, okay, I see this, make this change now.
Yeah.
So that would have helped a bit to make up for the lack of like local experience and track knowledge a little bit at the Worlds.
Well, I guess the other thing too is, you have all this racing that you did in the States, and granted, smaller to big events. How much do you feel like you learned in that one weekend or the 1 week of racing that you did over in Europe?
Oh, right.
Yeah.
That you were like, holy shit. I'm sure some stuff was kind of a wake up call, but other stuff was like, never thought about doing it that way. Getting exposed to other karting.
Yeah, they're definitely a little bit more ruthless over there, and we talk about it here with guys, especially the old timers, who, if you notice, who you race with them, they'll never, ever, ever look back, right? And that's different schools of thought. I understand each side of it, but if you look at some of the international racing, these guys will look over their shoulder 4 or 5 times down the straight and counter move and counter block each time. So they're looking for just full on, like, I'm just going to block you. I'm going to block you. Just blunt stuff, or just move all the way over and just smack. They're not shy about it. Here, I don't know if we're a little bit either, I'm going to say more polite, but maybe the rules have been a little bit more hardcore here about contact.
Yeah, I would say, and also the rules. Like, I want to say that over there, that sounds like reactionary block. As long as you only do it once, it's okay. Yeah. Whereas over here, I think if you look over your shoulder and you lay a block down, you're going to get, at least a warning or something from there,
Yeah, and I think it might have changed a little bit in the last few years. To mimic more, because you're hearing a lot more, unless I'm wrong, I don't remember hearing Formula One as much 20 years ago, 25 years ago, about the moves and the blocking and the one move, off the racing line and back on or what have you. But it seems like maybe they're taking that down to the karting level a little bit more. But yeah, I mean, I've raced against Euros and South Americans that just like you just want to kill them at the end of the race because you're like, really, you're looking and blocking me that much,
Right.
just total in your face, just gnarly stuff.
I've always felt like the defensive driving is fine. If you pick a defensive line or whatever, or you get creative and you're not looking over your shoulder, hey, good on you, mate. Well done.
Yeah.
But if I made the move and you come over, especially if there's contact, now that's next level. But if you come over and like I've made the move and you look and you get it, no, that's not cool. Like you said, you get done and you're like, I'm not a fan of yours.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I've had some great races. Cleveland's really good at driving a defensive line just perfectly in the middle.
Yeah.
Right
where you want to be.
Still fast enough.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the thing. See, that's the art right there. The art is, because we can all drive defensively and lose 3/10, 4/10,
right.
and then you're like, you're gonna get attacked within 2 or 3 laps by everybody. Yeah, or the people that, if you can make a pass and be offline and exit and still carry the same speed and not losing any time.
Oh, I love that.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I can't remember who we were talking to. God, it might have been Matty J. It might have been Matty J talking about Giebler, where Giebler had put a move on him.
Oh, like Matt would go for it and Giebler would counter. And the amount of speed that Giebler would carry on the counter is just insane.
See ya. It's like, how did you? That's not even possible. But he would do it.
Right.
It's awesome when you can see that.
Sounds like your biggest rival and friendly rival that has been Crow. Majority of the times you've been on track battling for the front row, or maybe a little bit further back. He's been right there with you though.
Yeah, it went on for like 10 years, and
that's so cool.
Yeah, and not even necessarily having to share information. Sometimes you just kind of gleam and you can tell the direction people are going. But actually, no, not too much, because he's a tall. So you have the tall, skinny drivers with their seats
different dynamic.
Yeah, their seats laid back a little bit more. I raced quite a bit against Robbie Mott, another tall driver, Mike Mottner. Steve Zaroller's plenty. Travis Irving. These guys, to me, it's always miraculous, especially if they're overweight a little bit. Travis has always been really fast and tough. But, we can't use our setup. We're lower center of gravity, lower, different seat position.
Yeah.
So to be able to skin the cat differently, but then arrive at, like I said, Crow and I would end up, it was uncanny. We could be anywhere in the country, Shawano, Centennial, Oklahoma City, everywhere at nationals, and it's like, hey dude, what's up?
That's so funny.
We qualified, within a couple hundreds of each other, and not necessarily up front. It could be mid pack, it could be wherever.
You guys are even.
Yeah, even.
So a few of the older old school guys, and the 3 that come to mind are you, Crow, and Matty J, have the higher posture on the wheel. Is that an old school thing because of the air cooled? You're trying not to hit. I mean, doing the Yamahas and stuff back in the day, you weren't trying to hit the top of the motor, or you think it's just coincidence?
Yeah, and to add to that too, like I used to, and Matt does this as you say, they're right. You're right up there on the top, right? The arc. So the arc of the steering wheel only gets flat on the top, and you guys are right towards the end of the flat. I can't even come close to controlling the go-kart like that. And
I've done it a few times just to mess around. I'm like, I don't know what that.
No, it's impossible. You guys, it's voodoo magic. I don't know how you guys, because John Crow, I'll race against John Crow, and he's doing that, and like even the 206,
same deal, yeah.
And I have to be 9-3. If I'm not 9, or maybe just a gnat's ass up on 9-3. How? Yeah. Where is that from? Do you know?
Yeah, no, it's definitely from that era of the 90s, and I think I remember trying to recall, who would tell us about it or talk about it. But I think there was a time where we would put carts all on scales, on 4 scales, what have you, and sit in the cart and play around with, okay, put your hand here, turn the wheel and watch the loading. Now put your hands way up here.
Oh.
And, the belief, I guess, was the transference of, right, left to left rear, left front to right rear.
How much leverage you're putting into it, yeah.
Yeah, just something about how it transfers.
Actually, this may be really good. So I'm testing on Saturday, right?
Mm-hmm. You need to drive all day like that.
Well, I've notoriously have happy hands. Like I always put too much.
The times that I've just messed around doing it, it's slowed my hands down a bit.
Yeah,
but it's a change. It's a tough change.
Yeah, it's about comfort, right? What
Yeah.
you're used to doing. You know, I wonder if that would be. Yeah, I want to try it.
Well, and part of it might be, just a simple thing of up on the wheel to do that. You're kind of a little bit more forward, and you're putting more weight forward, and you're putting more weight forward. That thing's just going to turn better. So that might be a bigger part of it. That's,
Which is interesting because I drive a 2020 OTK, and you could look into the corner, things get cut. Right. So I need to dial it down. So I move my hands up to dial it down, but now the counter of maybe I'm further forward. So this is interesting. Yeah, I hadn't really thought about that.
And you know what? I just think back to the old school Region 7. You look at pictures of people up on the wheel. It's just like an attack pose. It looks like you're going to get after it.
Looks super aggressive. Yeah.
Last thing I want to do is look back and see Matt Johnson on the wheel like that. I was like, oh God, here he comes.
Yeah. You just see knuckles.
Right.
I used to see that all the time with John. I'm like, well, luckily he does that all the time. So I don't know if he's attacking or relaxing.
Yeah.
I can tell he goes from like the slight crouch to the big crouch. That's how I know he's really getting after it. He's always got that tuck going on.
The other thing Matt had mentioned in the text earlier was, again, he was just giving kudos to you, and he said one of the coolest things was that you were able to beat him and PRD Senior, his dad in Masters in the same year.
Yeah.
At LAKC.
Yeah, let's fast forward. What year is that?
I couldn't tell you.
14.
14.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so you know it right.
I wasn't sure why I wanted to bring it up, but yeah.
A 3-year range of when it was out here, yeah.
That was epic. I mean, really.
2014, you're running 2 classes.
2014, running 2 classes.
And it is LAKC, and I want to say back in the day when they're like 200 some odd entries, like the classes are
PRD had a big field.
PRD was the shit at the time, and I'm going to add something to that we'll talk about later. But the PRD race here,
the Pan Am
Cup, thank you.
Yeah,
we'll come back to that. But I mean, PRD was the thing there for a few years, and in 2014 you ran 2 classes then, senior and masters.
Senior and masters. So I think I had the old 09 bent up cart for masters.
That just rubs salt in the wound, mate.
And then I had like maybe a 12 for senior, and
masters always get the second fiddle.
Yeah. So, but no, I mean it's a great story, and it's a great time because, first arriving. This is all like flash forward, flash back. Arriving to Adams in like 90, whatever, 394. Watching Ron Charteau, Mike Johnson, a bunch of the old timers from back then wheel it, and even watching races and they weren't just running masters. I mean, it was, Mike Johnson racing against Matt, his son.
Because there's no masters yet.
Right.
You could do light, heavy,
But it was all in Superbox. So everyone decided, I just want to race where, because it's low horsepower, so everybody could run together. It doesn't matter your age.
You're just adding or taking away weight.
Right.
Or changing pipes.
But, and then I mentioned Ron Charteau because back in the 90s, Ron, if anything about my career I wanted to emulate, it's like some of these old timers. Ron would race Superbox and a super stock Reed class. So 2 carts just out of the back of his truck or whatever by himself, no tuner, and race 2 classes and, do fairly well in both of those. So we're at 2014 LAKC. We're front row there. I forget how I got the pit spot, but it's sandwiched between Colton Herta, Ron Charteau with his son,
Ryan, yeah.
And then Ryan, right. And then, so it was kind of like an old school thing. And then Mike Johnson comes back after not racing that I'd seen for, a decade or two.
Yeah, I want to say when Matty J did the Smoking Fast deal. I think it was right around then. Yeah.
So he came back and did PRD. And so I was with Jason Hedervik and Terry Nash, because Hedervik was building motors over there. So it was a part of that, Nash operation. And Hedervik's motors were just crazy fast. And yeah, we had some good races there. And I mean, on average, Matt was faster. I think Zimmerman was out a couple times, a few others. But it was just one of those of me trying to stay out of trouble. And, won some races here and there.
Who were you pitting with?
By myself.
Okay.
And Hedervik would help He was there for, most of the races, but mostly just worried about his motors and gear and what have you. And, making some suggestions on tuning. But I think I remember like a race or two where he couldn't be there. So I was just solo, 2 karts, 2 classes,
Man.
up against all these others. So that was cool.
You know how you make that a little easier? 1 kart, 2 classes.
Yeah, 2 sets of wheels.
I thought about that, but then you're changing gear. You're changing everything.
dude.
Oh, that's right.
No,
The
I'm
weight
telling
and
you,
everything.
I did it. It's a terrible idea.
Yeah.
Nope. You need 2 karts. So it was a good battle, and it's just ironic that it worked out to where Mike was racing in Masters and Matt was racing in Senior, and I never really thought I was going to win Senior. Like I said, it was a combination of some good races that I lucked out. Either Matt broke or however it worked out to where to win them both, to go to that LAKC banquet.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
And have them both up, on stage and taking the awards. That was pretty cool.
Did they do Masters first and then Senior? Because that'd have been cool. You go up there, you get the Masters one, and you're like, hey, you remember that old guy?
I think.
Yeah, from 5 minutes ago, he's back up here.
Yeah, he's back up here, Matty J. What?
Yeah.
That's something else. And what's fun about that whole thing is that we all, Paul, I don't think you got a chance because you hadn't done 206 yet, but I got a chance to share the track at the same time with both Mike and Matty J in 206.
Oh, wow.
And it was a blast. I mean, it was a really we had they were there. We had Freckleton was out there. Seth Nash, I believe, was out there. All the same race. And I want to say, I think I've said it before, both Mike and Matt wreck each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They happen to find each other.
Yeah, they ended up finding each other. You showed up a little bit later in that game. And talking about that 206 stuff, that's when I first got a chance to run on track with you. And I have to ask you, I'm running for a championship. I want to say this is 17, right? I think it's 2017. I'm running with we have our CSK racing team we're doing. I'm also doing the KPX stuff up north, but John Crow's running for Baldozier. He's running the entire championship. I'm running the entire championship. And I got Mark Connell, who's running our tents, also running the entire championship. And then, kind of out of nowhere, Paul Bonilla shows up, and I just get giddy. And I'm like,
Right.
Ooh, it's already badass. I'm running with Crow, but Paul Bonilla's here. This is sick. How did that whole... You've been talking about, you like the horsepower, like the fast... How did the 206 thing happen?
And as you were saying that, I was trying to remember whose 206 I even drove. I don't know if it was...
I want to say it was RLVs. They hit you up to get ready for this showdown.
Oh, you're
the
right.
Phoenix Showdown or whatever.
That's
right.
what it was.
You're right. Thank God you're here. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
the Alzheimer's hasn't set in yet.
You're right.
Nice.
That was the Phoenix one they did, right?
Correct.
And I actually, I did that with
Oh, you cleaned shop there. There's a
Giamara,
few people.
and it was Vasquez. Well, I wanted to race senior, but they're like, no, we need to put you in master.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, you did the tune-up
2
here.
classes? 2 classes?
Yeah, I know. I wanted to do 2 classes. Yeah. So you're right. It was on the,
So that's why you're out here running. You were doing a tune-up for the showdown.
Yeah, it was that. But I mean, I showed interest anyways, just because, anything that John would do, I'd be like, oh, John's over there racing without me.
No, you never did shifters. What are you talking about?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's a whole nother level.
He saw John go to shifter. He's like, idiot.
Freaking John would be out here. We need a John Crow episode so bad. John Crow, if you ever listen to anything we ever do, get over here so we can do that. But guy would be in at LAKC 206, X30
shifters.
Yeah.
Dude.
And then X30 in
and
between.
3 classes, 206,
That's right.
X30, and shifter 175, I think it was at the time. Unbelievable.
You know what?
Full Ironman.
As somebody who runs the again, right now, you just got done doing Pat Akers with the GP, the higher horsepower stuff. What made you want to cut down to the 206, and what did drive you to it? And it couldn't just been because old Johnny Crow's doing it.
Yeah, no, it's a little bit of everything. I mean, remember I was saying earlier that karting has gone through, we go through hey, more horsepower, faster this, faster that, and then, oh, wait, let's consolidate. Let's go, slower, less power, spec. So it meanders, right? It ebbs and flows. And And it's really just, it's about the competition. Obviously there's a bunch of nobodies racing, whatever class, who cares? But you start to get, I remember the money race where Matt Johnson raced against Drew and this last turn here, the decreasing. And you guys can put enough cones out because people just kept chopping the inside. And obviously that's how Matt got him.
Right.
But it's just really the competition. It don't matter what it is. If it's got a motor on it, if you have some good guys out, but definitely the tighter racing was interesting, and I just wanted to come do the tater diggers.
Well, it ended up being a freaking blast, getting a chance to race with you. Again, Crow and I have been running for a while. Mark Connell, who was around with us. And you did more than one race. There was the first race, I think it was kind of, you're kind of figuring things out and whatnot. And I remember, I don't think Crow was here for that one because Mark and I were teammates, and we linked up and we were gone.
Right.
And you were third, but no drafting partner,
They're
no
just
help.
on a Paul Bonilla island.
We're learning the thing, and the amount of working together that you do in the 4-stroke game, and how beneficial that can be, right?
Right.
But the second time that come around, I don't know, I can't remember why, but Mark Connell's not in the conversation. Either he's not there or something happened and he's further back. But it's myself, John Crow, and the Paul Bonilla there. And it's 100% Paul Bonilla and John Crow against me.
Right.
And you tell me afterwards, and I felt it at the time, but you tell me afterwards it was 100% on purpose.
to take you down. Yeah. So you just reminded me of why. Yeah. Part of it was like, okay, I see you guys out here having fun. And I mean, I knew you ran the place. I didn't know how much you raced. I didn't know your history. And remember just last week, I was like, I was talking about Pat's Acres, how amazing, asked if you had been up there. And Andy's like laughing, going, he's from up there. I'm like, oh, okay. So obviously, and we talked about this earlier, is like, people for years kind of at the, acquaintances at the track, but because you're racing against them or whatever, you're not going to really, you don't strike up a full-on friendship.
You're not going to have a cup of tea with them, yeah.
Exactly. So then I saw you racing and doing fairly well. And I'm like, okay, I need to go play in this guy's backyard and, see what you got. And then I realized that actually I watched a few races because we were here. We were just racing different classes.
Right.
And seeing John actually have to really work to beat you and race with you. So I was like, oh, okay, I need to, get a piece of this.
Need to have a taste
There's
of that.
anybody, there's anybody who knows John Crow, right? It's Paul Bonilla.
Right. So I was like, okay, that was really the impetus for wanting to come race. And then once we got on track and I realized, all right, well, if I'm going to, because as you said, a drafting partner or someone to work with, it became apparent that you have to, in any of these low horsepower, especially all the 206. So it was pretty obvious. I'm like, I know how I'm going to help. So we basically,
bloody favoritism.
I ended up having to park you and throw a net over you and then let John get away. And I was fine with, finishing second because I'm, well, okay, honestly, he paid me some cash to park you. So
did he really?
Just kidding.
That could have that was a good sell.
I'm kidding.
John's like, I got $20 in my pocket with your name on it
right now. We were actually beforehand. We were kind of joking about I remember the race, and I'm going for a championship, or at least I'm trying to go for big points, and I'm struggling. I'm pushing to try to get past Paul because it's John, Paul, me, and I finally get around Paul, and then I'm like, all right, time to go to work. I need to try to get John. As soon as I get around Paul, the very next opportunity, he just, as you say, sends it, park, net, and we end up racing hard for like the next several corners because Paul's not letting any of this go. And John ends up pulling out like this lead. And I remember on some straightaway, I look back at just a full-on turnaround. I look at Paul, and I'm like,
thanks.
You son of a bitch. You
awesome.
did that on purpose because I know the relationship too. And sure enough, you're like, yeah, I can't let you. I'm definitely working on his side.
Right.
Oh, awesome memory. It was a lot of fun. That's what is so cool about the 206 as well, is that it is so much about the craft. It is so much about that side-to-side and racing hard.
To add on to it, though, is how many different people brought in.
Oh, yeah,
You know, like we talked about that with race and everybody, because it started off run what you have. and it got more competitive. Chassis started coming around and stuff like that. But shifter drivers, some old school, car guys came out. It was a breed of a lot of different people out there. It was pretty fun.
Well, and not only that, like you said, people from all different levels, and you got a John Crow, a Matty J, Paul over here, like 125 top tier drivers coming back and doing 206 stuff. And John has said it multiple times, Matt did as well. They learned things from the 206 that they were able to apply to shifters, where they were able to apply to other things, and in their driving about being smooth and carrying the most out of stuff. When you were doing the 206, when you came out of it, because again, you were doing it for fun, but also kind of tuning up for the showdown, again, 206, did you carry anything or did you learn anything from the 206 that you were able to apply and maybe improve in the other stuff?
Or did you think about stuff differently too?
Right, yeah. He's like, no, it held me back.
I don't recall that I was able to transfer much. And again, because we had done a lot of different horsepower stuff, you know, I mean, yeah. Well, you know what? Think about it. A 206 has got more torque than, say, like a sportsman or a super sportsman, which is even slower than a super box or senior sportsman, however they say it. Yeah. So, I mean, really the biggest thing is just carry speed, don't overslow,
Right.
But fortunately, like I said, from the past, that was kind of already there. I can see other people who just got in and bought a 125, because let's face it, there hadn't really been any 100cc worth racing until the new ones showed up,
Right.
The K and the VLRs. So there's many people that missed that whole boat. So yeah, I mean, fortunately, I came from enough of the old school. Obviously, there's people way, way back before me, but that I got a chance to do some at low horsepower. So it was really just kind of plugging back into that way of driving and thinking.
Yeah. No, when you already have a little bit of something you can kind of fall back on, it's one thing. If you've only been doing the higher horsepower stuff, I think that's where maybe the light switch can start to come on. And I think with both John and Matt having done stuff in the past, it was kind of like, oh, right. But now, like, okay, how can I apply that in a different way?
Yeah.
We're talking about all the different kinds of stuff that you've done over the years and the successes you've had. We talked about, that a double championship at LAKC against both Johnsons, Mike and Matt. But also, you've won SuperNats, you've gone to the Worlds, and you continue to be a front-running Masters driver on a regular basis. What drives you now and to go out and race, other than it's a good time, but what are your goals and what are your thoughts, and what do you look at the calendar and be like, I want to do that? Because I'll be honest with you, I didn't see it challenge, and it hurt me on the insides. I was like, I want to race with Paul. And you're not, but then you did do Cali Rock. You're doing Cali Rock right now. And I think this is a good segue into talking about Pat's Acres, but how do you choose what you're going to do every year, and what drives you?
Yeah, no, I mean, so the challenge, I've been doing it for 10 plus years. And obviously with Andy, it was always an important stop. It was just maybe a change a little bit. There's been years where budget was a little bit of an issue, for sure. Years where, just family stuff. There's always a reason. And quite honestly, like, I don't thaw out from the cold, January, and granted it doesn't, snow, and it's not like people are laughing at us here in Southern California, but
cold in quotations,
cold in quotations. Although, we've been to Tucson in January, where like going down, where in the morning it was, 26 degrees and people's motors were, froze. They're what do you call it? The impellers have fallen off.
The water pump deal. Yeah.
I mean, just crazy stuff. And then going down the straightaway for morning warm up, where it's got to be only like 32, 33, and realizing, I got to put on like rubber gloves underneath your racing gloves because your fingers are going to fall off, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I think I have plenty of times during the year where either it's too hot in the summer and I'm just going to go back and surf and do stuff by the beach, and I'm not here for 3-4 months. Or in the winter if it's real cold. I mean, we've been into snowboarding, we've done winter sports. So some of it is just the ebb and flow of like, okay, kind of over karting for a little bit, and then come back, mixed in with budget, because it's amazing. You don't race for a few months and you can take a trip to Europe with the family. you can buy a new car.
Yeah.
And we can say these things now because we've been at it long enough to where
Right.
It's one thing if you're in your first 5 years of racing, you're not going to miss a single weekend, a single championship, a single whatever. But having done a little bit of everything, so you know what? As far as the moving forward, it's on a case by case, race by race basis.
Whatever looks fun to you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was just going to say fun. We didn't bring it up much earlier, but I've road raced on and off throughout the years. I mean, my first road race was probably 97.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow.
There was SCK, which was the Southern, component or partner to NCK, Northern California Karters, Southern California Karters. The Kunze family was always really big on that.
Oh, neat.
Kyle and his, I can't remember if it's his aunt or who, but they were, members of the club and made rules and raced and laydowns. There's same thing with the White family, Ron White. The first time I ever met Ron White was at a road race. So there was plenty of crossover there. That was really fun. Like Jeremy Drew, there are plenty of the racing families would do some of both, but just a little bit of road racing. Obviously sprint is what it's all about.
Yeah.
But it's fun, and then this last, 5-8 years, it's been kind of like a bucket list of hitting tracks, right? So I took Ed Quinn to Laguna Seca a couple of years ago. And it's funny, the reason I wanted to go is because I looked like Jim Russell Jr., numerous big names had gone to Laguna Seca. And we started hearing that they're, every year it's we don't know if they're going to close it down. We don't know about the noise ordinance.
Right.
This might be the last year the karts run there. So I was like, okay, we got to go.
Yeah. Time's running out.
Yeah. To come down the corkscrew in a cart is unbelievable. Just even a Rotax without a gearbox, coming down that thing, you accelerate fast, and I remember the shifters, some of them were doing 139s without getting into the ICCs, regular, Honda ones. I took both the DD2 and my regular 125 and raced them both. And I got down to 141s.
Talking about lap time.
Lap time, yeah. Minute 41s, just a couple seconds off a full shifter.
Yeah.
And then high 142s in a regular 125 single speed. That's
wow.
Just why did I even bring the DD2?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, just more track time. Yeah. I had a great race with Ed on one where it was at the start finish line, just nose to nose.
That's cool.
That's cool.
And he actually got me on one. That was really, really cool. Did Sonoma big track. Have done obviously way back in the day. There was a race called the something Invitational. Gosh, I forget. It was all KPV, and
for road race.
It was no, it was actually the 3 disciplines. So it was or whatever. It was sprint at the Willow Sprint Track one day. Next day was Big Willow, and the third day it was Streets of Willow.
Okay.
Oh, neat.
That's kind of cool.
A race with Buddy Rice, Jeremy Drew, Robbie Mott, myself. I can't remember if Matt was out there, Johnson. I believe Chad Turner. It was a bunch of old schoolers, but good names. I remember, I forget, I don't know how it happened, but Buddy Rice and Robbie Mott, some way, somehow ended up half a lap down. Whatever happened. And you're not supposed to bumper push in road racing, but these two hooked up for of this 30-minute race for 20 some odd minutes, and they bumper pushed to where, they were picking up I don't know how much in lap time, but a lot, to where the front group of 15, 18 of us, they were way back there and they caught us. And I forget where everyone ended up. I didn't win any of those, but they were in the mix. It was impressive.
That's
seriously
cool. Well, and I'll tell you on the bumper push, that was one of the things with the 206 deal, at least out here at Cal Speed. If you didn't do it, you're not going to catch.
Yeah.
Right. I remember Matty J, I've said it before, he used to talk about trying to break up Mike Smith and his homeboy.
I remember that, yeah.
Attached at the hip.
Because Derek and I would link, man, and you're going to go faster, especially if you know how to do it well.
Yeah.
Especially if you know how to do it well. So you got a chance to do a bunch of different stuff with, again, the road racing and trying out these different things. Again, the bucket list of tracks and different things. And we talk about Pat Akers. So Pat's Acres, yeah, that's where I started as a kid back in the mid-'90s. And it's gone through a couple different changes. The old river turn is now completely different than it used to be.
Yeah.
They did a repave. Repave the whole thing. They've done a bunch of different stuff. But was that the first time you'd been there?
Ever.
First time you've been there, and I think you do halfway decent.
Yeah, did okay. Yeah. Did okay with my 2014 Tony Kart.
Shh. Oh man.
Good God. Did you go race with the Rock GP on a 2014 Tony Kart? Did you really?
I know. I'm a jackass. I get grief for it constantly.
Going right back to old Matty J saying you get the most out of the equipment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I get it.
Or is it a scenario where we're all wrong? We need to go back and find the most used up 2014 OTKs we can find.
Billy's out there on his nice RPG cart,
Totally.
Derek Wang's out there on his stuff.
Wang has a cart dispenser. He just pulls the one off
exactly
out of the dispenser each time.
Man.
Each session.
So nice. But no, it sounds like they had the wrong equipment.
No. I mean, Billy, like his qualifying times were like 3-4 tenths faster.
He went pole both times.
Yeah,
pole both times.
He said he was hooked up for quali.
Yeah. Which I guess could be a good thing or a bad thing, right?
Right.
But yeah, no, it was an amazing track. The destination, just getting out of SoCal, being out up there in the forest. I said in an interview with Sean Burr, just you can take a deep breath in and your lungs don't hurt.
Right.
And just the setting and the track, and I mean the amount of grip. So whatever they did with that new surface, I remember. Chris Egger saying that he goes, we spent more on the repaving than we did when we bought this track.
I believe it.
Wow.
100%.
So, but I mean, the fact that you're busy all the time on that track, not much of a straightaway. And, I do my running, do some surfing cardio. I did some weights and whatever. And I was out here with Billy a couple Wednesdays in a row before we left. I thought that was plenty. Got there.
Yeah.
I was knuckle dragging by Saturday, like literally, I mean, drinking a few Red Bulls, a bang, doing
I'm trying to stay ahead of it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Some ibuprofen. It's just like losing the grip like a newbie, like someone having to remind you. It's like Casey down the straight, he's doing the flags and he's like, I was giving you the signs, like losing your grip on the steering wheel. I'm like, I didn't look that bad, did I? I mean, it's
a busy joint. It really is.
And this rubber now is, this Levanto is probably, pretty close to an Evinco.
It lays it down, though.
Yeah.
It lays it down. I think the Evinco peels more and we get more marbles.
Yeah.
But the Levanto lays it down.
Just sticks, yeah.
So, it was physical. It was fun. It was, we kind of got into it on track a little bit. There was a little bit of shenanigans, but we're all good. We're there's a respectful group of guys. We can race hard and rub wheels and we have to send it here and there, but hopefully not send anyone off. It was a great race weekend. It was kudos to the CRC and Andy Saisman for choosing to go up there. It was a bucket list track, and a little bit of a bummer because a lot of people had agreed to go. And I know there's a confluence of events, the Canadian thing. There was a lot of Canadians were supposed to come, and I know they have some quarantine thing where they go back. It's a mess. There was an overlap of a road race thing for some reason that came out of left field, and some other stuff. I think NOLA was coming up. So, I mean, it's tough to get these schedules to work out to where you can get everybody to show up. And so I think he wants to do it again next year. He's taken a survey. A bunch of us said, we'll definitely do it,
Yeah. I've said before that one of my absolute favorite things is being at the kart track early in the morning. I mean early. Right, registration's not open yet, or it's barely open. It's quiet. The sun's coming up, and even here at Cal Speed, right, and it just the vibe, that feeling you get, like, all right, we're gonna the race day's coming. Here it is. At Pat's Acres, you get the river right there. You got the stream next to that.
Motocross track.
They do have a motocross track, yeah. Which I hear is like 3.7 miles long or something like that.
It takes a while.
But again, here in SoCal, you're not going to have a lot of trees, shade. The vibe there, and I have not had the opportunity to go to some of the other tracks on the East Coast, but you go there and it's these twists and turns through the trees. You talk about the forest. It's a different feel, and it's just birds are chirping. I mean, it's a different deal, and it's like, damn, I love the morning at Pat's Acres is pretty badass.
No, it is, and it was my first time ever, if you imagine this, after all these years of racing, that we had a camper delivered there and did the full track camp out.
Come on, son.
Yeah. So Ed Quinn, myself, and Jason had a sleeper delivered there, and it's great. So, I mean, to your point, you get up in the morning. It was a wake up at 6, hobble over to the. I mean, you could use a bathroom in there, but we all, try to be respectful of
That's nice of you.
And hobble over to the porta potty, and you hear people starting up their motors way back in the back of the the camping area, just warming stuff up, getting ready.
Mm-hmm.
It was cool, really cool experience, and then be able to stay late in the evening, having drinks with friends, and don't have to drive anywhere.
I was gonna say you can take your time and ease out of the day.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I love the creature comforts of being in a hotel, but this was a perfect place to do that.
You did the full experience.
You talk about these days it's about bucket list, fun, that kind of stuff. I do, before we kind of put a point on that kind of stuff. CRC, you said you did Buttonwillow. You went up there. Do they offer a ticket at all? And do you still have like Worlds or anything like that still on the old list?
Yeah, so CRC, it was just confirming with Andy, and he said that there's a ticket to the Rio.
Okay.
And then obviously the Rio, a win at
the Rock Vegas, right?
Yeah, the Rock Vegas. Got to be specific, which is not Rio.
Not Rio.
Yeah. We'll see how this turns out.
Right.
Is a ticket to the Rock Worlds.
Okay.
If you win that race. Worlds is really not so much on my horizon anymore. I mean, it'd be great to do. So for right now, let's see. Got to go up to Sonoma in a couple weeks and see how we do there. It's pretty close between Billy Cleveland and myself to see who gets the ticket to the Vegas race, and then we'll see where we go from there.
There's a little bit more in the States that you're trying to do. Going back to your bucket list, though, huh? As far as tracks.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be great to do. Like, gosh, I still haven't done Newcastle.
Oh, really?
Yeah, never.
Even
did
with
that.
the Pro Tour stuff and things like that.
It wasn't on the year that I went.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So because when I went, it was Phoenix. I think my last SuperNats was like probably 14, I believe.
Is SuperNats back on the game? You think about trying to do that?
It's not currently, but we'll see. Anything's possible.
Yeah.
I mean,
obviously it's not what you do all the time, so you don't have the X30 package, things like that, right?
Right. Have to rent it. I mean, I've rented a couple times to do. I think I did. I did Pro Tour 2015 or 16. I remember I went with Phillips and with Derek Burris and that group. So we'll see. It's just kind of on a case by case here moving forward. I guess it would be nice to do the challenge next year. We'll see how that goes.
100cc though. 100cc.
Yeah, right.
Totally selfish.
You know what though? I think he's going back to Tucson, and have you raced Tucson?
I have not.
Oh man,
that's what I hear.
That is an amazing track.
That's what I hear.
It's kind of road race ish,
Okay.
I mean, you have a slower hairpin, but it's a fast track. It's definitely fun. So we'll see. Obviously some club races. I mean, I've been really just flirting with, and I'm close to getting a 100cc. I was just kind of stuck between obviously the K and the VLR, because thus far, Rock has allowed you to race, both and bring that K. But, here shortly, I'm sure they'll want to circle the wagons and just focus on their product now that they have enough people, enough motors out there. But then, you pick one or the other, and then you're kind of just,
stuck.
You're stuck in that.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and to your point about the 100cc and doing the VLR and whatnot, you can do either or at Tri-C. And we talked about it in the current events this next one I'm going to be running in Masters and then in the 206 as well. But I happen to know that you're talking about also jumping behind the wheel for the next Tri-C as well.
Yeah. I will for sure. Well, first of all, before I say this, which motor are you running?
Oh, the VLR.
Good. Okay, me too. And
we will be the anomalies in that group.
And yours, if I'm not mistaken, it's Jim Barry and basically Blake's.
Yeah. Jim Barry is the guy, and they've got a good working relationship with Blake, and those guys go back and forth. But yeah, it's Blake from True Tech and Jim Barry.
Yeah, and Jim's awesome. It's funny because there's always overlap. I mean, I know, like circling back to what you said earlier, RLV and getting me into the 206 and on their chassis, there was a big push there a few years ago to try to, build that up. And I mean, you guys did it anyways. I mean, you already were on it, but before you did KPX, they were talking to me about doing Masters KPX.
Oh, really?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, and it's not for a lack of wanting to do it. It's just more about time and energy. And if you're going to go away, because I mean, some of those tracks, Prairie City and all that, they're out there, and that's akin to going away to some big championship race too. But so I was actually kind of happy for you and glad that you. Yeah,
I didn't know that.
You took that.
I mean, I did.
Paul did you a favor.
I did know that. He
restarted your racing career.
He really did. I basically owe everything to Paul Bonilla. I did know that I wasn't number one on the list. Well,
or two.
Yeah, it turns out I was actually probably 17th. They just ran out of phone numbers to call. Like, do we know anybody at all? But no, and I know that part of my issue, right, is I work all the time.
Right.
And they actually took a chance by going with me because I can't be there for practice day and stuff like that. So, but no, the fact that you were the guy that they were thinking of first, and I ended up getting the opportunity. Thank you, Paul Bonilla.
That's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, no, Rod and Art have been really supportive. I mean, there's that core group of guys, Matty J and a bunch of others that, we date way back. And
Matt's also run with them before up there for the Nationals, I think.
For sure. I mean, that whole Pan Am thing. I know we didn't really talk much about the Pan Am.
Oh, right, yeah,
PRD
PRD Pan Am. That was such a badass event.
It was a badass event. And
how'd that go, Paul Bonilla?
Really bad. There's badass, and then there's bad as in, like, no, I mean, I was doing well. But,
I think you did well.
Yeah, it sounds like you remember what happened to me. You heard the story.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we also did the 2 karts, also did Masters and Senior. Masters, I, got, won the heat races, won the main, and then went into tech. And that was a money race. That was $2,500 to win.
That was a cool deal.
And so they called me over and they said, we have a problem. I'm like, what happened? They're all, well, you have an illegal airbox. I'm like, what are you talking about? And they showed me the airbox. And these airboxes, they were black and they said RLV on it. But, when I was over at the shop with Jason, they had a box just with a bunch of airboxes in it. And I just grabbed one. He didn't see me grab it. And so I grabbed it. Turns out it was a leopard airbox that said RLV. Man. And I forget what it is. It's either 30 or 31, 30, whatever the millimeters is.
Yeah.
On the
but there's a difference between the two
on the stacks, on the intake stacks there, and it's like, oh god, I grabbed the wrong airbox.
That sucks.
Yeah. Oh, Jason he lost his stuff. He's just like, because obviously, when you do certain deals like this with people, come tune for me, we'll partner up. We'll share some of the winnings. So it's like, oh man.
Yeah.
And then in Senior, raced against Matty J and a few others.
God, I want to say even a Jake Craig was in that field. Like,
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, it was Jake. So Jake, Matty. I think I was running third for a while there, and
same airbox. I'm just kidding.
No, the correct airbox, and I was in the top 3 or 4 the breakaway group, and I was just happy to be there because I mean those guys are fast, and it was, and so I had a good race for the most part until a bad choice of attempted pass on Boz. And Boswell, took us both out. So, sometimes you're a hero, sometimes you're the zero. But, more times than not, right, the sends work out and you're successful, but, if you make a mistake, got to own it. My fault, my bad, but the day you stop trying is the day you're done, right?
Right. Well, I'll tell you what, out of all the Masters drivers out there, I mean, to be able to go and we talk about, I want to say, Howden and Co. Is it Ron White they call the ageless one? I want to say it's Ron White.
Yeah, I think so.
Right?
Really? No, I
think they call him the.
I think
it is Ron White.
I think it's Ron White. They call it the ageless one because he keeps running the senior, the S1 class, even though he's definitely a Masters level.
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't even know how old he is.
No
ancient.
idea.
He's definitely ancient.
He's like mid-40s, you think?
I honestly have no idea, but
I'd probably say mid-40s.
Yeah.
Guessing, I don't know.
He's thereabouts, Paul Bonilla age, basically. That's what I'm saying. But, I mean, at the end of the day, if you can go and rub elbows with the seniors, and you absolutely can, and honestly, a Billy Cleveland can. I mean, that caliber, I can't. I'm way too fat for that. But you guys, to be able to do that, and we're talking about, again, 14, 15, 16 on up, and some badasses across the board, and be able to actually and beat Matt Johnson in senior, and run with Jake Craig, and run with these guys at the Pan Am deal. Your caliber of talent is, again, why you are one of the absolute best in the Masters category, because you're already a pretty solid senior guy. As we go forward, you start looking at those calendars, start looking at those different things you can do. We talk about bucket list tracks and stuff like that. Is there anything on the resume that we're like, I'd like to go get that? We talk Worlds isn't the deal. SuperNats has been a while. Do we see it back to try to? I mean, we talk about the packages and whatnot, but is there anything you're like, I want to go get that before I just have some fun?
Keep surfing.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, SuperNats would be great one of these days again. I had plenty of races with Will Power, Kip Foster. I mean, Kip's is the master.
Right.
Matty J's done well last few times out there, so it'd be cool to race against them at that level. We'll see. I mean, it looks really tough. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
I mean, it was tough when we were doing it, but it's definitely, like anything else, you have a lot of these seniors that have gone over that cusp of 32, 33, 34, 35, and they're like, okay, fine, I'll do Masters. I mean, Matty J did senior for a long time, and he's just only recently arrived in Masters.
Yeah, and he's begrudgingly, right?
And he did senior again this last weekend at Newcastle.
Yeah.
Was it Newcastle?
I didn't pay attention. If he did it this weekend,
but it was Pro Tour.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was. Because they were on the road from GoPro. They were been on the road for like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but ironically, so like we said earlier, I was gone for 5 years. When I came back to racing, I checked out some races, and I was watching Billy racing pro kart in senior only.
Cleveland.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember that part of his story. That was when he came back the second time, and he's like, "Oh, I got this," and he shows back up. He's like, "Whoa,
yeah,
this is challenging."
And it's ironic because, like you just said, the second time, a lot of us had this second time, especially once you're this age, you're going to have a midlife, something event.
That was his third one.
But yeah, he was racing. I remember him frustrating like Maddie and some of these other guys, running in senior. I mean, it keeps you quick.
Yeah.
We all know it's like, oh, really, 30 pounds or whatever. It's like, is it that much? Yeah. It's huge.
Yeah.
Right.
I talked to some of these other guys and guys we have in our pit, whether I'm saying I'm hurting my neck, my shoulder, whatever. And they're like, really, you're hurting? I'm like, well, not to be a dick, but you're like 7/10 off. And
I'm driving a little bit faster.
And 7/10, okay, whatever on the stop. I mean, we know it's miles, but away, but people that don't really realize it's like, well, yeah, I mean, that's an extra couple miles an hour in every corner, extra G's, extra loading, extra that. So, when you're going fast, I mean, you're going to feel it
for sure.
So I can just imagine, and you know what? I haven't raced a competitive 125 senior race in a long time. Just that extra half a mile an hour or whatever. That's why I could go race a senior race and probably be like, mid pack or worse, because it's like, we're just not used to carrying that speed.
Right.
Yeah.
Never mind the fact that your brain is also having to get after it.
Right.
Because you're getting it. My thought is that you go from masters to senior as a masters, right? It's kind of like the way I think about the SuperNats when I went. I've only been once, and it was in the main, in the final. It's attack. So you're constantly under attack. In senior, if they know who you are already, you're like, this Masters guy, get the hell out of here, right? So they're already attacking.
Right.
But they're attacking anyway. That's the default.
Right.
So, okay, cutting laps is one thing, mate, but like you said, the chess match, the awareness, mentally you may get tired before you even get physically tired too.
Yeah. Yeah, no, there's a lot to it. And no wonder why you hear these, Formula One drivers, we work out 5 hours a day. It's like, wow, I'd be lucky to work out 3 hours in a week.
Yeah, right.
Oof, 3 hours in a week. I thought you were going to give me at least 2.
Well, shit, when they got nothing else going on, I guess they got time, right?
Yeah, well, or if it's their check.
Fair enough.
But I mean, for sure, there's something to be said for, whether it be like a couple weeks of surfing if there's really good waves, because that's cardio. I mean, surfing kicks your butt. It's the paddling out that,
Gotcha.
and getting hammered constantly by waves, or mountain biking. I never was really that much of a fan of climbing hills. After maybe a year of mountain biking, you start to get into the fitness level of it and what's required. But yeah, once you attain a certain level of fitness and, have that kind of cardio, you realize you get in the cart and it's hard to put into words, but it's like, oh, okay, like I'm breathing normally, I'm focused fine,
right.
And you'll feel faster.
Yeah. You're not trying as hard to hit the same note.
Right.
It's not quite as hard.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
Well, we're 2021 here, and as you say, it's Paul Bonilla's birthday. On what is the date today? Actually, I didn't even look.
August 16th.
Yes, as you would know.
I guess you would know, yeah.
August 16th. Happy 53rd birthday, Paul Bonilla.
Happy birthday.
Thanks, guys.
Doesn't look a day after 59.
Right.
Seriously, I've said it before. I think the world of you. I think as far as Masters drivers go, you're in the conversation with the best of the best that I've ever seen or been around. And I'll say on a personal note, I remember getting done with Phoenix. I had never been there before. I went and did GP and 100cc, had decent results, but I came back and you'd said to me, "Hey, now you're in. Now,
right.
Now you're part of the crew, basically." And I'm like, just pack it up, boys. We're done right now. That's all I need in the rest of my life, right there.
Well, you did well. You didn't just show up. You held your own.
Well, but to hear it from someone like you, and again to rub elbows with guys like Billy Cleveland and whatnot, those are the people I get excited about. And I think it's the same thing with a senior driver who's been around for a while, has that respect. I don't know that cadets or juniors really give a shit about that, but us Masters guys have been around for a while. To get a chance to rub elbows with someone of your caliber, and then to hear something like that, it's pretty awesome. Before we let you go, though, one last thing I want to ask you. You got time before you hit Billy Cleveland status.
Right.
You got time. As you move on, and again, you've been doing you got the live stuff going on, etc. And we talk about Cleveland being so damn good. And can I do it 10 years from now, stuff like that? Have you ever had a thought to coaching or team stuff or anything beyond just as the driver? Because Billy Cleveland, phenomenal. I don't think he does the coaching stuff or like that. Whereas I already right now, I'm like, I don't know if I want to drive as much as I want to coach. Have you thought about doing stuff like that?
Yeah, absolutely. We've had some instances here and there with a newbie or a young driver that we can work with. And it hasn't been an ongoing thing. It's just, actually with, I know Andy used to have a lot of young drivers and then it became more of a Masters thing. And, his plate's been pretty full with the series and promoting and all that. But you saw I was out here with Josh Huff a few months back for Tri-C. He had some young kids in there. That was fun. And, I kind of mentored and worked with a couple of them. And, he was happy as pie. He's like, dude, let's do this. I'm like, well, again, I can't commit to anything long-term, period. But, there's definitely some possibility there. And on that note, we're talking about bucket lists and doing different things. He's got a dirt thing coming up. I've never done the dirt.
We've been
Dude.
thinking about that too.
And
Yeah,
so
same.
is it next week? I think it's next week, a week from tomorrow or something, right?
It's coming up, yeah.
Yeah. So
That stuff looks pretty fun.
it does. And you
It's
know what?
different.
It
Yeah.
is different. You know, I'm not looking forward to cleaning the damn thing
Dude,
afterwards.
I was gonna say, someone was busting my chops. I'm like, I just don't want to get dirty, man.
Right.
Like that is just what it comes down to.
I've said it before. I had a choice: dirt or sprint racing. When I was 12, my dad said that I had to clean the cart, and I said sprint.
Right.
That was it.
Right.
Like if that happens, I'm wearing the old helmet, the old suit. You know?
And I always trip out because, like, when we were at Pat's recently, you know, anyone that puts it off, whatever, you see guys in dirt, like, there's always a hose available. They go and they just hose the whole thing off. And I'm going, oh my God, you're hosing down I always thought that was bad. I mean,
Right.
like, really? You can just hose it all down? Like, what about the axle bearings?
Yeah,
you know?
that's the thought process from the rain race. Oh man, rain racing is so hard on equipment. Blah blah. I'm like, up north, might as well say half the season's in the wet.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I guess it's more about if it's getting in the motor and the crank bearings and all
Right,
that.
right.
Everything else is whatever.
So you going dirt racing is what you're saying?
Well, maybe not racing, but
You'll go
You
try
know,
a day in the
Dirt
dirt.
driving.
yeah, why not?
That'd be cool.
I
You know?
dig it.
So,
Might need to change your posture though on the wheel.
Oh,
right.
I think that might be the first fix.
A lot of counter going on
Yeah.
right there.
yeah, that's true. That's true. So, yeah, no, I mean, it's, you know what it is? Some people are naturally good at explaining, teaching, you know, and mentoring. It doesn't come naturally to me. I have to think about it a little bit, and I have to, you know, kind of formulate a plan, like how are you going to, right? Because we all see people do it the wrong way, right? You know, last thing you want to is be like one of these parents who just screams at their kid.
Right.
You know, like my daughter, I don't know if you remember, I had her out here numerous times. I
Yeah.
had a cart for her at a mini max, and she was doing it just to come hang out with dad. And she was, you know, just wanting to do it from that point of view, but it wasn't her passion. It wasn't her interest. And as a parent or just any adult is like, look at that quickly and go, all right, they're not into it.
Right.
This is you, not them. And you can't beat that into them. And, you know, just let it go. And so I let it go. She'd rather do everything. She's been out with the surfboard with us, and, you know, enjoys being out in the water. And so if they're not into it, they're not into it. Don't be that psycho soccer mom or dad, you know? But yeah, there's an art to everything. There's, you know, teaching is, and mentoring, you know, got to figure out how to do it, basically.
And there's a lot of knowledge in that noggin of yours over these years.
Hopefully.
Now
Impart
we're just trying to grab that knowledge.
and impart some of it before, you know, it all gets forgotten. But one thing I forgot to say earlier, and I think other guests have kind of touched on it. You know, the passion of doing all this is, at least for me, it's a trifecta. I mean, we all love to drive, right? And then, as I mentioned earlier, you know, having a dad who's a tool and die machinist and all that, and tinkering and hot rodding stuff. I love, you know, working on stuff. I love working on motors. I mean, I've built motors. I've done all kinds of stuff. I mean, I'm not necessarily going to say I'm good at it, but, you know, good enough. And then there's the third part of that is like, well, you know, do you know what the car is doing? And do you know what it needs? Right? So there's tuning, there's driving, and then there's just what I'm just calling straight mechanical, you know? And I kind of like enjoy all three of those equally, you know? I can't tell you which one. Oh, yeah, it's great to, you know, cross the finish line and win. But, you know, you got to love all aspects of this thing, right? Whether it's cleaning up the damn thing on a Monday after a weekend or prepping it on a Thursday or a Friday. So, you know, kind of like it all.
So basically what we're saying is the only reason why we don't have Paul Bonilla Racing is because the name PBR is already taken.
Oh, there you go.
Well, you know
Get a
what?
sponsor.
There is a sticker kit that we made way back when, and it was Paul Bonilla Racing. It's on a cart. Yeah, I have some old pictures of it.
Does it got blue
cool.
ribbon and everything?
No.
Paul, this has been a lot of fun. That
was a good time, man.
We say it
Thank you
so
so
many
much.
damn times. I've known you for years. Got a chance to share the track with you and whatnot. It's good to know that I was below you on the list of people to run the VLR.
Oh, come on.
But no, seriously, didn't know two shits about what Paul Bonilla was all about, and to get a chance to share this time with you, man. I appreciate you coming out here on a Monday and hanging out with us. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
No, thanks for having me. Thanks for, you know, same thing. Not that I didn't give two shits, but, you know, once you start seeing other people come on this show and doing what you guys are doing, you know, I see the cohesive nature for the sport, for even new people trying to come on, you know, like, I get it. You know, some of us are older. We were not like we're don't want to accept the new technology, but I mean, there's a reason why long format podcasts and interviews works. It's working in all other kinds of formats. And so glad you guys are doing this. It's a real positive thing for the sport. And yeah, hope to see and listen to more guests.
Well,
Sweet.
And, on a selfish note, we just want to know more about Paul Bonilla.
That's all. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Thanks so much,
you.
buddy.
All right, thanks, guys.